Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming today in this event. Without saying too much, because we have a lot of interesting things to hear today, I will give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Sorin Dan Michalaki, Ambassador of Romania, to address the conference.
Well, dear colleagues, dear students, I would say it is an honor and a pleasure for me to address the beginning of this interesting conference. Yes, I every time have problem with the microphone, so I'm trying to cope with it. And it's very interesting for me because I believe I come here not just as an ambassador, but I came in my capacity as an academic and a political scientist myself. The issue of the topic of this conference is very, very history of the previous after the World War I, and it contributed to change the regional and geopolitical landscape. It is very complicated and sensitive now to look back at the moments in the previous century and to understand the mechanics and the dynamics of the regional and international relations. And I'm convinced that the insights, the opinions that will come from various countries in the region, as I saw in the program, will make us to understand better the dynamics of a very, very complicated period in the regional and European history. I won't get into the substance because I'm afraid, I must tell you very sincerely, I have my opinions about these dynamics, but I prefer to stay on a very diplomatic level, waiting to hear what you academics, what are your insights as academics. But I would say something which is important for us, for all of us. Learning from the history is important. Understanding history, it's important for what we have in front of us. And we are now living in a very, very complicated period. If you look at the rearrangement of the geopolitical landscape, what is happening in the world. I mean, I believe the dynamics now of changes in the world is is more accelerated than ever. I don't want to quote Lenin because he is not very suitable now in the democratic world. But Lenin had a saying. He said there are decades when nothing happens, and there are days when decades happen. We are living in such a time when from day by day we see that we live in an accelerated history, which makes us to to be very adaptive. And this is why history is important, because we have to understand what happened before and to prepare for this accelerated period of changes. And what is important for us, I believe, for me, is to stick to principles. Our politics is trendy, but we can defend us sticking to principles regarding international law, international relations, and to stick to the desire to have a world which is regulated by law based on of Lausanne. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And go on. Do you want to address the audience from the Japanese embassy? No? Okay. Now, let me see. The rector will address us online. Professor Stathiou. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
You hear me?
Please. Yes, yes, please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Apologies for not being able to attend this meeting online because of other commitments. Your Excellency, Ambassador of Romania, Your Excellency, Deputy Ambassador of Japan, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, and dear students. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome you to European University Cyprus today on the occasion of the organization of the conference entitled The Treaty of Lausanne and its Multiple Dimensions by our School of Law. As the ambassador said, I don't want to get very much into the substance as well, but I would just like to say that the Treaty of Lausanne is widely acknowledged to have officially resolved the conflict that had initially arisen between the Ottoman Empire and the Allied French Republic, British Empire, Kingdom of Italy, Empire of Japan, Kingdom of Greece, Kingdom of Serbia, Kingdom of Romania, since the outset of the First World War. Significantly for Cyprus, within the framework of the treaty, Turkey also formally accepted the laws of Cyprus, which had been leased to the British Empire since 1887, but de jure remained an Ottoman territory until the First World War. During this conference, which is held 100 years after the signing of the treaty, professors and students at European University Cyprus will discuss about the significance of the treaty and the peace in the region of Eastern Mediterranean and in the Middle East. We are very pleased to see that in our times, when revisionists pursue to amend the treaty, a thorough analysis of the relevant issues in a historic framework and the importance of the treaty today will take place at our university. Apart from the academic analysis, there will also be a simulation of negotiations and moot courts in a historic context presented by the students of the School of Law. I would like to take this opportunity to say a few words about our university and our vision for an academic institution in Cyprus, where increasingly university education, research and innovation assume a a more important and central role. Our institution has come a long way since its founding more than 60 years ago. An ever-increasing number of our faculty and researchers collaborate with scientists in some of the finest universities in the world. Our faculty also coordinate or participate in a number of prestigious projects which are funded by the European Commission, the Research and Innovation Foundation here in Cyprus, and other funding agencies. Our research activity in the last 10 years increased at the average rate of 20 to 30% per year, boosting external research funding and publications in peer-reviewed journals. As a result, the university already fulfills the criteria for entering prestigious rankings such as the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. We envisage a highly ranked European University Cyprus, which will attract high-caliber students, academics, and researchers from all over the world, and therefore contribute to the society in Cyprus. We are also very proud of the fact that our university last year began the offer of its program in medicine at the branch of our School of Medicine in Frankfurt, Germany, and at the same time, a community of students studying for a European University Cyprus degree in China is growing as we are in the third year of our collaboration with Minjiang University. I would like to conclude with my warm thanks and congratulations to all those who worked so hard for the organization of this interesting conference, especially Dr. Haralambos Stamelos of our School of Law. I would like to wish you all a successful conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Vice Rector, want to address? No. Okay. Now we can start with the introductory speech of the Dean of the Law School, Professor Konstantinos Tsimaras, and you have the floor, please.
Hello, good morning, dear guests. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, Mrs. Deputy Ambassador from the Embassy of Japan, Mr. Vice Rector, dear colleagues, dear students. Thank you very much for your presence today here to our conference concerning the 100 years of the Treaty of Lausanne. After a short introductory speech, it was a treaty between the countries that they won the First World War, and from one side, Greece, and Turkey from the other side. And in that point of view, we have in the treaty countries like Japan, which was one of the countries that it was with the part of the winners of the First World War, and also the other countries of that we call Entente at this period. It was also the end of practically the end of the period after the First World War, but also the beginning of the period between the two world wars. It was the beginning in essentially in Europe of the era concerning a long period of instability, political, economic, and social instability. The change of a lot of regimes in Europe, essentially in Central Europe, and not only, and also the beginning of the new movements in power in Germany, and also other authoritarian regimes in Central Europe who follow the Axis during the Second World War II. So it was we can say a transitory period in that point of view, and of course it was the rearrangement of the relations between Greece and Turkey, and also the beginning of that we call today the modern Turkey Republic. The end of the Ottoman Empire and the beginning of the Turkish Republic. So I will switch in Greek. Ουσιαστικά η συνθήκη της Λοζάνης, την οποία φέτος γιορτάζουμε τα 100 χρόνια, είναι αυτή η οποία έρχεται να κλείσει την περίοδο μετά τον Πρώτο Παγκόσμιο Πόλεμο. Ο Πρώτος Παγκόσμιος Πόλεμος, ο οποίος οδήγησε στην σύγκρουση των δυνάμεων της Κεντρικής Ευρώπης, Γερμανία, Αυστρο-Ουγγαρία, κυρίως από τη μια πλευρά Οθωμανική Αυτοκρατορία και Βουλγαρία, και από την άλλη πλευρά οι λεγόμενες δυνάμεις της συνεννόησης, δηλαδή της Αντάντ. Ένας πόλεμος ο οποίος ουσιαστικά αιματοκύλησε την Ευρώπη με εκατομμύρια νεκρούς, με τεράστιες καταστροφές, και όπου, όπως θα δούμε στη συνέχεια, ουσιαστικά με τη λήξη του υποθήκευσε το μέλλον και έθεσε τις βάσεις για την έναρξη ενός δεύτερου πολέμου 20 χρόνια αργότερα, του Δευτέρου Παγκοσμίου Πολέμου, που είναι ο δεύτερος μεγάλος πόλεμος που θα ζήσει η Ευρωπαϊκή Ήπειρος στα πρώτα 50 χρόνια του 20ου αιώνα. Ευτυχώς μετά από το 1945 και μετά δεν είχαμε άλλο πόλεμο μεγάλο στην Ευρώπη, κάποιους περιφερειακούς, όπως ο εμφύλιος πόλεμος Ιουγκοσλαβίας, όπως αυτό που βιώνουμε τώρα στην πρώην Σοβιετική Ένωση, σύγκρουση Ρωσίας-Ουκρανίας, αλλά ευτυχώς τουλάχιστον δεν υπήρξε άλλος εκτεταμένος πόλεμος. Είχαμε βέβαια τον ψυχρό πόλεμο, ο οποίος ήταν ένας πόλεμος χαμηλής εντάσεως και ο οποίος διεξάγονταν κυρίως δια αντιπροσώπων σε χώρες εκτός της Ευρωπαϊκής Υπήρου. Η λήξη του πολέμου μας οδήγησε σε μια σειρά από συνθήκες. Η συνθήκη των Βερσαλιών που αφορούσε τη Γερμανία, η συνθήκη του Αγίου Γερμανού, του Σεν-Ζερμέν που αφορούσε την Αυστρο-Ουγγαρία, η συνθήκη του Τριανών και βεβαίως η από ευρωπαϊκά εδάφη. Χάνει επίσης τα εδάφη τα οποία είχε στην Μέση Ανατολή και στην Μεσοποταμία. Παραμένει ένα μικρό κομμάτι στην σημερινή περίπου Τουρκία, όπου ένα τμήμα στα δυτικά, αυτό της περιοχής της Σμύρνης, περνάει σε ελληνικό έλεγχο και τα τμήματα στα ανατολικά περνάνε κατά ένα ποσοστό στο νεοσύστατο αρμενικό κράτος, μέλος της Ένωσης Σοβιετικών Σοσιαλιστικών Δημοκρατιών, της ΕΣΔ, και ετήθηκε ζήτημα δημοψηφίσματος για ένα ανεξάρτητο Κουρδιστάν. Βέβαια, τα πιο πολλά από αυτά μείνανε στα χαρτιά, όπως θα δούμε. Τα Δωδεκάνησα παραμένουν στους Ιταλούς, έχουν χαθεί για την Τουρκία, για την Οθωμανική Αυτοκρατορία στον Ιταλο-Τουρκικό πόλεμο του 1912. Οι περιοχές οι οποίες ήταν πλούσιες σε πετρέλαιο, Μουσούλη και Βόρειο Ιράκ, περνάνε σε Βρετανική εντολή. Συρία, Λίβανο σε γαλλική εντολή, η Παλαιστίνη σε βρετανική εντολή, και ουσιαστικά από τότε ξεκινάνε και τα προβλήματα. Τότε, λίγο πιο μετά, ξεκινάνε και τα προβλήματα της Παλαιστίνης με την πολιτική των Άγγλων για την μετεγκατάσταση Εβραίων, που δημιούργησε τις πρώτες συγκρούσεις με μια όχι τόσο καλή διαχείριση της κατάστασης από πλευράς Βρετανών. Η Σαουδική Αραβία γίνεται ανεξάρτητη. Για το Κουρδιστάν, όπως σας είπα, τίθεται το ζήτημα δημοψηφίσματος και τα εδάφη της Αρμενίας διευρύθηκαν πάρα πολύ. Η συνθήκη των Σευρών, με την οποία ουσιαστικά διαλύεται η Οθωμανική Αυτοκρατορία, που ήταν από τους ηττημένους του Πρώτου Παγκοσμίου Πολέμου, γίνεται δεκτή από την κυβέρνηση της Κωνσταντινούπολης, από τον Σουλτάνο δηλαδή, όχι όμως από τους εθνικιστές, των οποίων ηγούνταν ο Κεμάλ Ατατούρκ. Στη συνέχεια, όπως ξέρετε, ακολουθεί η Μικρασιατική Εκστρατεία, η σύγκρουση μεταξύ Ελλάδος και Τουρκίας από το 1919 με το 1922, όπου τελικά, δυστυχώς για εμάς, θα οδηγήσει στην υποχώρηση και αποχώρηση των ελληνικών στρατευμάτων, που θα ακολουθηθούν και από τους ελληνικούς αλλά και χριστιανικούς πληθυσμούς της σημερινής Τουρκίας. Η συνθήκη της Λοζάνης είναι αυτή η οποία ουσιαστικά το 1923, δηλαδή είμαστε στα 5 χρόνια μετά τη λήξη του Πρώτου Παγκοσμίου Πολέμου, η συνθήκη της Λοζάνης είναι αυτή η οποία ουσιαστικά θα θέσει τέλος στην σύγκρουση Ελλάδος-Τουρκίας, αλλά θα υπογραφεί όμως από περισσότερες χώρες, από όλους τους νικητές του Πρώτου Παγκοσμίου Πολέμου, που συνεπάγεται την Αγγλία, τη Γαλλία, την Ιταλία, την Ιαπωνία, που ήταν στις χώρες οι οποίες ήταν με την πλευρά των συμμάχων, αλλά και άλλες χώρες οι οποίες ήταν με την πλευρά των συμμάχων στον Πρώτο Παγκόσμιο Πόλεμο, και βεβαίως την Ελλάδα, η οποία ήταν σε στρατιωτική σύγκρουση με την Τουρκία, και από την άλλη πλευρά την Τουρκία, που πλέον έχει καινούργια κυβέρνηση. Έχει την κυβέρνηση των εθνικιστών Επαγγελμάτων Τούρκ. Ο Σουλτάνος έχει απομακρυνθεί, έχει πάψει πλέον η ύπαρξη του Σουλτανάτου στην Τουρκία, και ουσιαστικά θα διαμορφώσει αυτό που είναι περίπου σήμερα η Τουρκία, η οποία είχε χάσει την Ανατολική Θράκη, η Οθωμανική Αυτοκρατορία, έχει περάσει στην Ελλάδα, εκτός από τη ζώνη της Κωνσταντινούπολεως, την περιοχή της Σμύρνης στην Μικρά Ασία, και αναφέρομαι στα εδάφη τα οποία παρουσίαζαν ελληνικό ενδιαφέρον, ενώ επίσης με τη συνθήκη των Σευρών είχε απολεστεί για την Τουρκία και η Κύπρος, στην οποία μάλιστα η Οθωμανική Αυτοκρατορία τότε με τη συνθήκη των Σευρών δεν είχε θέσει και κανένα ζήτημα όσον αφορά την επαναπόκτηση δικαιωμάτων επί του νησιού, που όπως θα θυμάστε στα τέλη του 19ου αιώνα έχει εκμισθωθεί στους Βρετανούς. Εκτός από η συνθήκη της Λοζάνης θα συνοδευτεί και από μια συνθήκη ανταλλαγής πληθυσμών. 1.600.000 Έλληνες θα φύγουν από τη Μικρά Ασία. Ουσιαστικά ξεριζώνεται η ελληνική παρουσία μετά από 2.000 χρόνια από τη Μικρά Ασία, συμπεριλαμβανομένου και του ποντιακού ελληνισμού, συμπεριλαμβανομένων και των τουρκόφωνων χριστιανών στο κέντρο της σημερινής Τουρκίας, δηλαδή στην περιοχή της Καπαδοκίας. Και από την άλλη πλευρά θα φύγουν 670.000 μουσουλμάνοι από το ό,τι είχε απομείνει στην Ελλάδα και τα νησιά του Αιγαίου και κυρίως στην Κρήτη, αρκετοί Τουρκοκρίτες, οι οποίοι θα κινηθούν προς την Τουρκία. Η ιδέα αυτή ήταν κυρίως η ιδέα των μεγάλων δυνάμεων, οι οποίες θεωρούσαν ότι με την ανταλλαγή των πληθυσμών και με το ξεκαθάρισμα της ύπαρξης εθνοτικών ή θρησκευτικών μειονοτήτων δεν θα υπήρχε πλέον και λόγος σύγκρουσης μεταξύ Ελλάδος και Τουρκίας στο μέλλον, διότι δεν θα ετίθεται το θέμα εδαφικών διεκδικήσεων. Οι μόνες μειονότητες οι οποίες μείναν ήταν η μουσουλμανική στη Δυτική Θράκη και η ελληνική μειονότητα της Κωνσταντινούπολεως, περίπου 150 με 160.000 Ρωμιοί, συν 6.000 Έλληνες στην Ύβρο και την Τένεδο, οι οποίοι δεν αντιλάγησαν. Μάλιστα είναι γνωστό και ότι η συνθήκη μιλά για μουσουλμάνους στη Δυτική Θράκη, Έλληνες στην Κωνσταντινούπολη και την Ύβρο και Τένοδο, κάνοντας ουσιαστικά μια διάκριση μεταξύ θρησκευτικής μειονότητας, που όντως ήταν θρησκευτική μειονότητα, διότι η μουσουλμανική μειονότητα της Θράκης δεν αποτελούνταν μόνο από τουρκογενείς, αλλά αποτελούνταν από Ρωμά, οι οποίοι ήταν μουσουλμάνοι στο θρήσκευμα, όπως επίσης και από Πομάκους, οι οποίοι δεν είναι τουρκογενείς και οι οποίοι ήταν για αυτοί μουσουλμάνοι στο θρήσκευμα, σε σχέση με την αμιγώς ελληνική μειονότητα της Κωνσταντινούπολης. Αντελάγησαν, όπως προανέφερα, και οι Έλληνες του Πόντου, οι οποίοι μετακινήθηκαν. Κάποιοι έφυγαν προς τον βορρά, προς την τότε Σοβιετική Ένωση, ήταν πιο κοντινή απόσταση, διασχίζοντας τη Μαύρη Θάλασσα. Άλλοι με πολλές περιπέτειες έφτασαν στην Ελλάδα. Επίσης θα προβλεφθεί και η αποστρατικοποίηση των στενών, Δαρδανέλια, Βόσπορος κτλ. Και των νησιών του βορειοανατολικού Αιγαίου. Είναι κάτι το οποίο ενδεχομένως το έχετε ακούσει αρκετές φορές στις ειδήσεις, να το επικαλείται η τουρκική πλευρά. Η αποστρατικοποίηση αυτή θα αρθεί το 1936 με τη συνθήκη του Μοντρέ, όπου συμμετείχαν και συνυπέγραψαν και η Ελλάδα και η Τουρκία, επαναστρατικοποιούνται τα στενά, αλλά αυτό οδηγεί και στην επαναστρατικοποίηση και των νησιών του βορειοανατολικού Αιγαίου, Χίος, Σάμος, Μυτιλήνη, Λίμνος και ούτω καθεξής. Επίσης, είναι χαρακτηριστικό το ότι η συνθήκη της Λοζάνης δεν έχει ημερομηνία λήξεως. Δεν υπήρχε ημερομηνία λήξεως, όπως σε κάποιες στιγμές είχε επικαλεστεί η τουρκική πλευρά. Προβλέπονταν μόνο ότι για την περιοχή της Σμύρνης, 5 χρόνια μετά, η συνθήκη των Σευρών προέβλεπε 5 χρόνια μετά δημοψήφισμα για την τύχη των εδαφών αυτών, αλλά μετά την μικρασιατική καταστροφή, έτσι κι αλλιώς αυτά απολέστηκαν οριστικά. Ουσιαστικά, η συνθήκη της Λοζάνης είναι η τελική συνθήκη με την οποία λύγει η παράδοση της Οθωμανικής Αυτοκρατορίας μετά τον Πρώτο Παγκόσμιο Πόλεμο, που οδηγεί και στη διέλυση της Οθωμανικής Αυτοκρατορίας και στη γέννηση της σύγχρονης τουρκικής δημοκρατίας, που είναι σε μια πολύ πιο περιορισμένη έκταση σε σχέση με αυτή την οποία κατήχε η Οθωμανική Αυτοκρατορία. Έτσι κι αλλιώς, όπως θα ξέρετε, ο Πρώτος Παγκόσμιος Πόλεμος ουσιαστικά οδήγησε στη διάλυση 3 αυτοκρατοριών, της Αυστρο-Ουγγρικής, της Οθωμανικής, έναν περιορισμό της Γερμανικής Αυτοκρατορίας και μια ανασυγκρότηση, ένα σχεδιασμό της Ρωσικής Αυτοκρατορίας, της Τσαρικής Ρωσίας, η οποία πλέον θα περάσει τώρα, ουσιαστικά, για την Ελλάδα ήταν μια σκληρή διαπραγμάτευση μετά την ήττα του 1922, μετά τη μικρασιατική καταστροφή. Τις διαπραγματεύσεις, όπως ενδεχομένως θα θυμάστε από την ιστορία για τις συνθήκες της Λοζάνης, την είχε αναλάβει ο Ελευθέριος Βενιζέλος, ο οποίος δεν μετήχε τότε στην κυβέρνηση, είχε προσκληθεί από την κυβέρνηση των επαναστατών μετά την μικρασιατική καταστροφή, όπως ενδεχομένως πάλι θα θυμάστε. Έγινε κίνημα το οποίο ανέτρεψε τη μοναρχία στην Ελλάδα, εξεδίωξε τον βασιλιά Κωνσταντίνο τον πρώτο και τον διάδοχό του στη συνέχεια τον Γεώργιο τον δεύτερο. Στην συνθήκη της Λοζάνης. Θα μπορούσε να πει κανείς ότι αποφεύθηκαν τα χειρότερα για την Ελλάδα. Κρατήθηκαν όλα τα εδάφη τα οποία είχαν κερδίσει. Και θα καταληφθεί από τους Τούρκους. Σε ιδεολογικό επίπεδο, η συνθήκη της Λοζάνης σημαίνει και το τέλος της μεγάλης ιδέας. Δηλαδή, η αντίληψη που επικρατούσε από τα μέσα του 19ου αιώνα, που είχε πρωτοδιατυπωθεί από τον Μαυροβορδάτο, ότι η Ελλάδα θα πρέπει σαν κράτος να επεκταθεί σε όλα τα εδάφη στα οποία υπάρχουν Έλληνες, που σήμαινε όχι μόνο αυτά που κατακτήθηκαν με τους Βαλκανικούς πολέμους, αλλά και πιο βόρεια και πιο ανατολικά. Ουσιαστικά η ιδέα αυτή πλέον ενταφιάζεται, δεν μπορεί να υπάρξει πλέον ως βασική ιδεολογία του νέου ελληνικού κράτους, όπως προέκυψε μετά το 1821, και αυτό σημαίνει ότι θα πρέπει να δημιουργηθεί κάτι άλλο το οποίο θα καλύψει το ιδεολογικό αυτό κενό όσον αφορά την την ένωση της Κύπρου, αλλά στην ανεξαρτητοποίηση και την απομάκρυνση των Βρετανών. Είναι, αν θέλετε, οι δύο τελευταίες εκλάμψεις μιας ιδεολογίας, η οποία όμως πρακτικά είχε ενταφιαστεί στη Μικρά Ασία και στη συνέχεια με τη συνθήκη της Λοζάνης. Αυτό το ιδεολόγημα πλέον δεν μπορεί να στηριχθεί, αφήνει ένα κενό όσον αφορά τη σύγχρονη Ελλάδα και βεβαίως συνοδεύεται και από τον ξεριζωμό των Ελλήνων. ένας πολύ μεγάλος αριθμός, ο οποίος θα κατευθυνθεί κυρίως στην υπηρετική Ελλάδα. Είναι σημειωτέο το ότι οι Άγγλοι δεν επέτρεψαν μια πολύ μικρή εγκατάσταση προσφύγων στην Κύπρο, πέτρευαν την εγκατάσταση των Ελλήνων. Πάρα πολύ λίγοι εγκαταστάθηκαν. Έχει τύχει να γνωρίσω μερικούς απογόνους αυτών, όπως μια κυρία του Ανωτάτου Δικαστηρίου που είναι μικρασιατικής καταγωγής, και επίσης και ένα-δύο φοιτητές μας, οι οποίοι οι παππούδες τους ήρθαν το 22 μετά την καταστροφή στην Κύπρο. Αλλά ο αριθμός ήταν πολύ μικρός, νομίζω άγγιζε τις 5 με 6.000, που σε σύγκριση με το 1.600.000 είναι αμεληταία ποσότητα. Η συνθήκη κλείνει ουσιαστικά τον Πρώτο Παγκόσμιο Πόλεμο. Είναι όμως η αρχή μιας νέας περίοδου για την Ευρώπη. Ήδη δηλαδή με το 1923 έχουμε μπει στην Ευρώπη σε μια σειρά σημαντικών αλλαγών, θα έλεγα τεκτονικών αλλαγών. Ήδη αρχίζουν και επικρατούν αυταρχικά και ακραία καθεστώτα. Το 1923 ήδη η Ιταλία έχει περάσει στην εξουσία το φασιστικό κόμμα του Μουσολίνι. Στην Ουγγαρία από το 1920 έχουμε τη δικτατορία του Ναβάρχου Πόρτη. Επίσης στην Ισπανία έχουμε την εγκαθίδρυση της δικτατορίας του Πρίμο ντε Ριβέρα. Στη Γερμανία έχουμε την πρώτη αποτυχημένη προσπάθεια κατάληψης εξουσίας από τον Χίτλερ. Είναι το λεγόμενο πραξικόπημα της μπειραρίας του Μονάχου, που θα οδηγήσει στη σύλληψή του και την φυλάκισή του για κάποιο χρονικό διάστημα. Γενικά φαίνεται ότι στην Ευρώπη αρχίζει και επικρατεί, όχι μόνο στην κεντρική, αλλά και στην Ιταλία και τη Γερμανία, δηλαδή σε μεγάλες βιομηχανικές χώρες, αρχίζει και επικρατεί η άνοδος στην εξουσία αυταρχικών καθεστώτων, που θα συνεχιστεί αργότερα, που θα οδηγήσει στην επικράτηση πολλών αυταρχικών καθεστώτων στην κέντρο-ανατολική Ευρώπη, πέρα από την Ουγγαρία που ανέφερα, την Ρουμανία επίσης, την Βουλγαρία, η επικράτηση των Ναζί το 1933 στην Γερμανία, όπου σταδιακά αυτή η αλλαγή καθεστώτων θα οδηγήσει, δυστυχώς για την Ευρώπη, στον Δεύτερο Παγκόσμιο Πόλεμο. Ήδη λοιπόν από εκείνη την εποχή, σταδιακά, σιγά σιγά, δυστυχώς φαίνεται να ανοίγει ο δρόμος προς τον Δεύτερο Παγκόσμιο Πόλεμο, που συνεπάγονταν τις πολύ μεγάλες καταστροφές που πρακτικά όλοι ξέρουμε ότι συνέβη επί ευρωπαϊκού εδάφους, και την δυσκολία που επικράτησε μετά για να ανασυγκροτηθεί η Ευρώπη, να ανασυνταχθεί η Ευρώπη και για να γνωρίσει έναν άλλης μορφής πόλεμο χαμηλής εντάσεως, πλέον αυτόν που ονομάστηκε ψυχρός πόλεμος. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ για την προσοχή σας.
Thank you, Professor Tsimaras, for your speech in Greek. Of course, we will have later the minutes in the English language, and you will find it all the speeches in English. Now, the former ambassador and instructor, Mr. Stavrinos, Dr. Stavrinos, will take the floor to express his own ideas and address to the conference. Please.
Η συνθήκη της Λοζάνης αποτελεί ένα διεθνές συμβατικό κείμενο τεράστιας γεωπολιτικής σημασίας, καθότι έθεσε τέρμα στον Πρώτο Παγκόσμιο Πόλεμο, εγκαθιδρύοντας την ειρήνη, ενώ καθόρισε τα σημερινά σύνορα των κρατών της Ανατολικής Μεσογείου. Μεταξύ άλλων, αναγνώρισε το σημερινό κράτος της Τουρκίας, καθόρισε τα σύνορα της Ελλάδας, συμπεριλαμβανομένης και της κυριαρχίας στα νησιά του Αιγαίου. Μέσω της συνθήκης αυτής, η Τουρκία παραιτήθηκε κάθε κυριαρχικής διεκδίκησης στην Κύπρο, στην Αίγυπτο, στο Σουδάν, στο Ιράκ, στη Συρία, στη Λιβύη, στο Λίβανο και στην Παλαιστίνη, διευθετήσεις τις οποίες επιδιώκει σήμερα να ανατρέψει μέσω του νεοεπεκτατικού οράματος της κυβέρνησης Ερντογάν. Σύμφωνα με το διεθνές δίκαιο, η συνθήκη της Λοζάνης συνεχίζει να βρίσκεται σε ισχύ και να δεσμεύει όλα τα κράτη, καθιστώντας τις αναθεωρητικές επιδιώξεις της Τουρκίας παράνομες και καταδικαστές. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Professor Melos and the Law School for organizing this very timely and politically significant event concerning the Treaty of Lausanne. The political and diplomatic consequences of the territorial and peace arrangements concluded by the specific treaty are of immense importance for the broader area of the Eastern Mediterranean and beyond. In addition, the untrue hinted claim that the treaty has expired earlier this year after a 100-year span of life is of crucial geopolitical significance as it reveals evidently hidden revisionist claims threatening inter alia the peace settings established by the treaty. Such aspirations are dangerous on a regional and global level, especially at a juncture where catalytic tectonic geostrategic changes are taking place in the broader region and at a global level. The Treaty of Lausanne in reality does not have an expiry date. There are certain sources that they intentionally imply that the treaty expired in July 2023, including certain Turkish political circles, but this is not true, both legally and literally. The treaty is still in force today and has no known expiration date, except if it is modified or replaced by new arrangements in accordance with the rules of international law. The Treaty of Lausanne is an international peace agreement concluding World War I, signed in Lausanne, Switzerland on July 24, 1923. The main contents of the Treaty of Lausanne are the following. It abolished the Treaty of Sevres, considered by Turkey as unfair. It formally recognized the Turkish Republic. The treaty delineated the borders of Greece, Bulgaria, and Turkey, and formally conceded all Turkish claims on the Dodecanese Island, Article 15, Cyprus, Article 20, Egypt and Sudan, Article 17, Iraq and Syria, Article 3, as well as on Libya and Lebanon. The separate Kurdish territory, which was a part of the Treaty of Sevres, was abandoned. Armenian people were split between the Soviet Union and Turkey. Palestine came under British mandate before being handed over to the newborn state of Israel. As a punitive action, the Bosporus Straits between the Aegean Sea and the Black Sea were declared open to all shipping and unrestricted civilian passage through it. A few words about the Treaty of Sevres. The Treaty of Sevres of 1920 marked the beginning of the partition of the Ottoman Empire. The treaty stipulated the renunciation of most territories and their cession to allied powers. Furthermore, Sevres internationalized Istanbul and the Bosporus. The treaty changed the whole outlook of the then Ottoman Empire, which was left with a small chunk when Greece, Italy, and France occupied their assigned regions. However, it lasted just for a year. Refusing such crushing terms, forces of the Turkish national movement fought a war of liberation and succeeded in replacing the Treaty of Sevres with the Treaty of Lausanne. What would have happened if the supposed Treaty of Lausanne's expiration had really occurred? Presently, a persistent question plaguing the minds of global analysts is what would have been expected to happen after the Treaty of Lausanne hypothetically would have expired in July 2023. Although the treaty has no expiration provision, and therefore, in accordance with the law of treaties, it continues being into force, the claim of such an expediency reveals certain revisionist trends worth of analyzing. Under certain limited Turkish interpretation, with the supposed expiration of the 100-year treaty in 2023, Turkey inter alia would have been able to drill for oil and establish a new channel connecting the Black Sea and the Sea of Marmara in order to be able to collect fish from passing ships. For some extreme nationalists, the supposed expiration of the treaty's force would mean an unlimited relief from the provisions of the treaty, allowing Turkey to reclaim conceded territories. Such an approach is very risky, even raising existential questions for the state of Turkey itself, which was recognized as a state under the provisions of the treaty at hand. President Erdogan has started a preempting campaign reclaiming certain Greek islands in the Aegean in anticipation of the assumed expiration of the treaty, which were handed over to Greece. He also aims to grab sea areas in the Aegean, Eastern Mediterranean, and the Libyan Sea, as revealed by his blue homeland conception. Likewise, he considers that he will be able to take back control of Libya and Cyprus and revive a dominant suzerainty in the Eastern Mediterranean region. President Erdogan has been criticizing the Treaty of Lausanne as the result of a blackmail against a Turkey in distress. They threatened us with reserves in 1920 and persuaded us to accept Lausanne in 1923. At Lausanne, we gave away the Greek islands that you could shout across to, said Erdogan on the 29th of September 2016 in Ankara. We are still struggling as to what the continental shelf should be and what should be in the air and land. President Erdogan had referred to the Treaty of Lausanne again in May 2016 by criticizing it for being unfair on the rights of minorities and urged for it to be updated so that minorities in Turkey should have the same rights as everyone else. President Erdogan called for border treaty review during his visit to Greece on the 7th December 2017. But Greek President Prokopis Pavlopoulos then rejected any change to the Treaty of Lausanne. Turkey also says the rights of the Muslim minority of Turkish origin in northeastern Greece are not being respected. Meanwhile, Greece complains that Turkey has repeatedly violated its air and naval space. Responding to the Turkish claims, President Pavlopoulos said, "This treaty to us is not negotiable. This treaty does not have any gaps, does not need a review nor an update. This treaty is valid as it is." Turkey's president has reiterated on January 10, 2023, that Greece is violating the Treaty of Lausanne as it is harming the Aegean Islands with demilitarized status. By arming these islands, Greece is violating the Treaty of Lausanne as well as other treaties. In letters to UN Secretary General last July and September, Turkey, for the first time, disputed officially Greece's sovereignty over its East Aegean Islands, over which sovereignty was ceded to Greece on the specific strict condition, as Turkey asserts, that they be kept demilitarized. Although the treaty, under Article 13, prohibits certain military fortifications exclusively on the four specific islands of Mytilene, Chios, Samos, and Nicaria, it does not impose total demilitarization, as Turkey emphatically claims. In this respect, the treaty stipulates that no naval base and no fortification will be established in the said islands. Greek military aircraft will be forbidden to fly over the territory of the Anatolian coast. Reciprocally, the Turkish government will forbid its military aircraft to fly over the said islands. The Greek military forces in the said islands will be limited to territory. President Erdogan should look also to the reciprocal obligations of Turkey, including the prohibition to Turkish military aircraft to fly over the said island, as they massively do, before complaining as to the defense reinforcement of the islands. In this respect, if one wants to reverse the argument used by President Erdogan, since Turkey violates her obligation not to fly over the islands, Greece could consider the treaty as void and ask Turkey to return all issues, i.e., international border arrangements, establishment of peace, recognition of states concerned, the sovereignty over the islands, etc. Few words about the prevalent political situation in the region. Turkey has never been able to erase those painful memories of when it was forced to sign, according to her own perception, the humiliating treaty under duress. In fact, the ambition of re-establishing the old Ottoman Empire never faded away. After the rise of Erdogan on the Turkish political horizon, it may be highlighted that the changes in the geopolitical scenario in the supposed post-Treaty of Lausanne era would depend on the use of Turkish military capabilities in the region and Turkey's revisionist claims. All relevant initiatives reveal, beyond any doubt, the systematic revival of the Ottoman aspirations. Few words about Greece and Turkey, the Treaty of Lausanne, 100 years old. Although its significance is often underestimated, the treaty still ensures stability in the Eastern Mediterranean a century later. When Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis and Turkish President Erdogan met in July at the NATO summit in Lithuania, they agreed to strengthen bilateral relations between their two countries. Given the tension between Greece and Turkey in the recent past, reaching occasionally warlike apexes, this is no small thing. It should be noted, though, that both states managed to avoid military confrontation, an outcome due in no small part to the Treaty of Lausanne. Greek Prime Minister Mitsotakis has said that he would like the International Court of Justice in The Hague to resolve any disagreements between the two nations. It would appear to be a reasonable approach, particularly as there is no viable alternative. During President Erdogan's recent visit to Greece just last Thursday, no direct reference to the Treaty of Lausanne was made by any of the two sides. While the Treaty of Lausanne was hailed at the time as a chance for lasting peace, some of its outcomes, like the exchange of around 2 million ethnic Greeks and Turks, are now seen as a terrible mistake, as characterized by Jonathan Conley, a historian studying the legacy of the treaty. It is true that the Treaty of Lausanne has perhaps been best known for having ratified a massive and compulsory population exchange. Under today's legal terminology, such an exchange of populations equates to ethnic cleansing, a crime against humanity under the blessings of an international treaty. This has important international consequences because population transfer then becomes a potentially recognized solution to the existence of heterogeneity and population mixing. Think, for example, the repercussions of the possibility of applying a similar approach in a solution to the Palestinian problem. So, while the Treaty of Lausanne did guarantee certain rights for all populations, its inability to deliver a more thorough pluralism in political bodies may be a lasting negative part of its legacy. In concluding, Turkey should be grateful for the outcome of the Treaty of Lausanne, as it offered back to her great territorial concessions, especially when compared to the Treaty of Cyprus. It has established modern state Turkey, ended a war with her, regulated many open issues, facilitating Ankara's Turkification policy, including forced exchange of populations, non-recognition of certain minorities, and finally, Turkey regained ample sovereignty limitations through the lifting of many pre-imposed independence and sovereignty restrictions. It should treat, therefore, the Treaty of Lausanne with more respect and appreciation rather than questioning its validity. Thank you very much for your attention.
Good morning, dear professors, dear students, and dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Kalampos-Tamlos for inviting me to this interesting conference. As you know, I'm a legal historian, so I will try to make some reflections on a topic which seems unusual to me, but nevertheless, it is an honor to represent Italy in this event. My topic deals with Italy's Aegean possessions, overall the Dodecanese Islands. Let's go into the details. The Italian islands of the Aegean, Italian Isole Italiane dell'Egeo, were 14 islands, the Dodecanese except for Castellorizo, in the southeastern Aegean Sea, that, together with the surrounding islets, were ruled by the Kingdom of Italy from 1912 to 1943, and the Italian Social Republic under German occupation from 1943 to 1945, When the Kingdom of Italy was restored, they remained under formal Italian possession under British occupation until they were ceded to Greece in 1947 under the Treaty of Paris. After the outbreak of the Italian-Turkish War over Libya in early 1912, Italy, in order to apply pressure on the Ottoman government closer to its metropolitan territories, occupied all the present-day Dodecanese except for Castellorizo. After the end of the war, according to the Treaty of Ushi, Italy maintained the occupation of the islands and guarantee for the execution of the treaty. The occupation continued after Italy declared war to the Ottoman Empire during the First World War. During the war, the islands became an important naval base for Britain and France. Italy was allied with both nations during First World War. The Dodecanese were used as a staging area for numerous campaigns. Following the war, the Titoni-Venizelos Agreement, signed on the 29th of July 1919, called for the smaller islands to join with Greece while Italy maintained control of Rhodes. The treaty further outlined an exchange where Italy would receive Antalya for southwest Anatolia. The Greek defeat in the Greco-Turkish War and the foundation of modern Turkey prevented this exchange. But there is something to say about this. For Benito Mussolini, in the first half of the 1920s, Turkey was not a country worthy of attention in the Balkans. As a matter of fact, the fascist leader intended to keep Turkey out of the Balkan affairs through diplomacy. This goal prompted Benito Mussolini to personally appear at the Lausanne conference. Italy had a special interest in the Dodecanese, which formed the maritime border of two Mediterranean and Balkan countries, as Turkey and Greece. He sought to contain Turkey because he feared that the victorious Turkish nationalists might assert claims over these islands. In January of 1923, the draft of the Peace Treaty of Lausanne, which superseded the Treaty of Sèvres, was submitted to the various delegates. It contained two articles on which I shall focus later, relating to the Dodecanese, the first being identical to Article 122 of the Treaty of Sèvres, and the second, stating about the fate of islands. In regard to these two articles, the Greek delegation submitted the following memorandum on January the 29th of 1923. And these are the words as they follow. The Hellenic delegation has no objection to make against Article 15 of the draft treaty, in virtue of which Turkey engages to renounce in favor of Italy all her rights and titles in the Dodecanesian islands enumerated in that article. It considers the procedure followed as just. It will recall, however, that an unratified treaty exists already between Italy and Greece on the question of the definite attribution of these islands, and it reserves the right of the Greek government, as soon as Turkey has relinquished her rights on these islands, to engage in amicable conversation necessary for the determination of their future lot. The Hellenic government, making this reserve, counts on the spirit of justice and equity of all, and above all of the Italian government, to give the question of the islands a solution conformable to the principles of nationalities and to the accords already existing. The Treaty of Lausanne was signed 6 months later on July the 24th, 1923. According to Article 15 of the treaty, Turkey renounces in favor of Italy all rights and title over the following islands: Stampalia, Rhodes, Chalki, Karpathos, Kassos, Tylos, Nisiros, Kalymnos, Liros, Patmos, Lipsos, Symi, and Kos, which are now occupied by Italy, and the islets dependent thereon, and also over the island of Castellorizo. Moreover, the Article 16 of the Treaty of Lausanne provided that Turkey hereby renounces all rights and title whatsoever over or respecting the territories situated outside the frontiers laid down in the present treaty, and the islands other than those over which her sovereignty is recognized by the said treaty. The future of these territories and islands being settled or to be settled by the parties concerned. Italy so formally annexed the Dodecanese as the possedimenti italiani dell'Egeo under the terms of the Treaty of Lausanne. The Lausanne Treaty finally brought the conflict with Turkey to an end and conceded sovereignty over the Aegean Islands to Italy. The events leading to the acquisition of sovereignty over the Aegean Islands, as described here, suggests a number of concluding points that need to be made. Firstly, the last colony conquered by liberal Italy was in fact the Dodecanese Islands and not Libya, although in legal terms the Aegean Islands were never meant as colonies. As we know, in 1924, the Dodecanese became a possession under the direct control of the Foreign Ministry and not a colony under the management of the Colonial Ministry. Furthermore, it is true to say that sovereignty over the Dodecanese and Italy's continued presence on those islands was achieved almost accidentally as a result of events beyond Italy's control, a sort of second-best expedient unsupported by any adequate mature assessment of Italy's real interests. Mussolini embarked on a program of Italianization, hoping to make Rhodes a modern transportation hub that will serve as a focal point for the spread of Italian culture in the East, in the Levant. The islands were overwhelmingly Greek-speaking, with a Turkish-speaking minority and an even smaller Ladino-speaking Jewish minority. Immigrant Italian speakers were a marginal language community. Although the Italian state placed the islands under the direction of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, governance of them was strongly tied to the project for an Italian empire in the Mediterranean and to the Italian colonies in Libya, Somalia, Eritrea, and after 1936 in Ethiopia. As a part of securing sovereignty in the islands, Italy created and applied a form of imperial citizenship for the local population, unique to its overseas empire. Called Italian Aegean citizenship, cittadinanza egea italiana, this form of citizenship was inclusive of local political rights and exclusive of military service. The sovereignty acquired meant a continuing dispute with the Greek nation for no overriding reasons of strategy or security for the Italian state, and without gaining a vital military outpost for Italian naval operations in the Mediterranean, as became evident during the Second World War. It is not surprising that the Italian administration in the possession was merely tolerated, never accepted either by the island population or by Greece. Active Greece irredentism in the islands continued, and the calm situation depended to a large extent on the administrator's intelligence and sensitivity towards the national question. Mario Lago, a refined, distinguished diplomat, the first governor of the Dodecanese from 1924, was appreciated for his ability and moderation. However, Even his long governorship was punctuated by symptomatic anti-Italian protests, such as the War of the Stones on Calumnos in April 1935. Groups of women convinced that Italy intended to impose conversion to Catholicism on the population hurled stones at the Italians. After 1934, Dodecanese citizens could complete military service and apply to become full Italian citizens, an option which many locals chose while supporting Italian fascism and seeing the Italian empire as promoting their financial well-being. Italian Aegean citizenship also ensured the islands were exempted from the exchange of Greek and Turkish minority population in the Aegean, a provision of the Second Lausanne Treaty that ended the Greco-Turkish War following World War I, the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. The fascist administration sought to modernize the islands, eradicating malaria, constructing hospitals, aqueducts, a power plant to provide roads, capital with electric lightning. The main castle of the Knights of St. John was also rebuilt. From 1936 to 1940, Cesare Maria De Vecchi acted as a governor of the Italian islands of the Aegean, promoting the official use of the Italian language and favoring a process of Italianization, which was interrupted by the beginning of the Second World War. I'd like to thank you for your kind attention.
So thank you for the invitation. It is an honor to be invited today to briefly discuss the British Empire, the Treaty of Lausanne, and Cyprus. My talk will be divided in two parts. In the first, I will explore the role of Britain in shaping the Lausanne Treaty as the chief negotiator power, and in the second, I will focus on Cyprus, and in particular the application of one provision of the Lausanne Treaty in Cyprus. Later this year, my book, authored with Dionysios Tsirivotis, will be published by Manchester University Press. The book discusses the international relations of the Lausanne Conference and further the notion of the Global 1923, with an analysis of why the Lausanne Treaty continues to be relevant today. So, the classified documents from the British, French, American, Greek, Turkish, Armenian, and Cypriot archives brings to light unknown details to the crucial treaty that has shaped the politics of the Eastern Mediterranean for a century. So, the conference in Lausanne is very interesting for international relations, as it is establishing a new era for international conferences and treaties, where negotiations now will not take place only between victors, and the peace would not be simply imposed in the absence of the defeated powers. In Lausanne, we have on the one side the victors of the First World War, with Britain on the leading role, and on the other side Turkey, who, while defeated in the First World War, is the victorious state of the Greek-Turkish War that preceded. Nonetheless, Britain still attempted to treat Turkey as the defeated country. So, two important notes here. First, the side of the Allies was not fully united. Even if Britain needed a united Allied front, there are very serious disagreements and different interests in certain issues amongst the Western powers. Most notably, Britain was particularly unhappy with certain French diplomatic initiatives with Turkey. Second note, while it can be argued that peace was not attempted to be imposed in the absence of the key states, there are still crucial parties who were not invited in Lausanne, most notably the Armenians, the Kurds, and Arabs. But before going any further, an important note on the global context. After the World War I, Britain is a superpower, but is a superpower in decline. The 1923 the year 1923, is a moment in global history where the transition of global hegemony from Britain to the US was taking place. So it is not surprising that the US wished to participate in the Lausanne Conference as an observer. Hence, it is important to highlight that when all the parties came to Lausanne in November 1922, the pre-conference work and the meetings were important in shaping alliances and red lines. Two agreements that were signed in October 1921 had a great impact not only on the outcome of the Greek-Turkish conflict, but also shaped the negotiations in Lausanne. So that was the Soviet-Turkish Treaty of Alliance and the Franklin-Guyon Agreement that brought the US and France closer. So although the United States only had an observatory role at Lausanne, they played an important backstage role, seeking to promote their economic interests. The key goal for the Americans was the Mosul region and the oil of the Mosul regions. The US wanted American companies to have access to that oil, and that meant that all licenses issued by the Ottoman Empire to European companies, they had to get cancelled. On the other hand, Imperial Britain had three key concerns at Lausanne. First was to maintain the British presence in the Eastern Mediterranean seas and react consequently against other imperial ambitions like the Italian imperial growing presence in the Eastern Mediterranean. Secondly, the British Empire wanted to use the Turkish Straits, and they wanted the Turkish Straits to be accessible to the British Navy. Here, the containment of the Soviet access to the Mediterranean Sea was key. So the Soviet-Turkish relationship also is a key here, and it was very crucial to be challenged by the British. And the third concern that the Imperial Britain had at the Lausanne was that Britain was interested in the Mosul territory that was producing oil. And that explained, that interest is actually explained by the recent decision of the British Navy to move its fuel from coal to oil. Overall, Britain did not achieve everything that it had sought to achieve in the Lausanne Conference, especially about retaining maritime supremacy and the total control over the key oil regions. However, Britain was successful both in internationalizing the straits, but also managing to postpone the settlement of the issue of Mosul. So the issue was not settled at Lausanne, but the region was later given to the British Protectorate of Iraq through the League of Nations. So if we have to pick the leading figure of the conference at Lausanne, we have to pick Lord Curzon, the British Foreign Secretary. Archival documents shed light on how British policy at Lausanne was developed and evolved as a reaction to the long World War I of the Eastern Mediterranean that lasted over a decade, from 1912 at least until 1922. So Lord Curzon's evolution of tactics and strategy were built upon a good knowledge of the region, and very often Curzon's view were opposite with those of the Prime Minister. Winston Churchill, in his book, famously sums up how people thought of Lord Curzon. And I'm quoting, one of Curzon's characteristic weakness was that he thought too much about stating his case and too little about getting things done. End of quote. So Lord Curzon was, however, instrumental not only in deciding the location for the conference, particularly he favored the city of Lausanne over Geneva, as it could accommodate not only all the delegations, but most importantly, it wouldn't create a false impression that the conference had anything to do with the newly established League of Nations. So Curzon did not only decide the location of the conference, but was the chief negotiator in the first part of the conference and the coordinator of the conference, and largely he dominated the proceedings. So when it comes to Cyprus, we have to look at certain articles. So the Lausanne Treaty overall put an end to the Eastern question as it established the borders of modern Turkey. In doing so, the nationalist Turkish government agreed to renounce all rights and titles whatsoever over the respecting territories outside of the frontiers laid down in the Treaty of Lausanne. This was stated in Article 16 of the Lausanne Treaty. And most scholarly work on Cyprus focus on the Article 16, or specifically when they are focusing on in the 1950s, when Britain arguably violated the Treaty of Lausanne and the Article 16 in particular, by involving Turkey in negotiations for the political future of the island. However, Article 16 was not the only key provision of the treaty that Britain failed to implement. This also occurred, arguably, with the Article 21. So Cyprus was not a key issue on the negotiating table in Lausanne. Yet the implementation of certain articles that concern Cyprus will have significant consequences for the island. One of the articles was Article 21, which will be the focus for the remainder of this talk. So according to Article 21, Cypriots could conditionally opt for Turkish nationality. So Britain wished to maintain a Muslim minority in Cyprus in order to continue the imperial divide and rule on the island and in the region. This is often overlooked by scholarly work. So in a recently published article, I assessed the time frame between 1923 and 1938 when concerns about the immigration of Muslim Cypriots to Turkey were discussed in the British Foreign and Colonial Office. So in order to understand the significance of this article for the region, the demographics of the newly founded Turkish Republic need consideration. Turkish political leaders idealized and aimed for a homogeneous and Turkified Anatolia. After almost a decade of constant conflict, the victorious Turkish forces found themselves in an underpopulated territory in Anatolia. It is hardly surprising that the Turkish leadership was keen on attracting immigration of the Muslim population of the former Ottoman territories to Anatolia and agreed to include a special provision in the treaty for the Muslim minority in Cyprus. This immigration policy followed the principle stipulated in the famous Misaki-Mili, the National Pact. The strategic importance of the island for the Turkish Empire had certainly evolved throughout the first 5 decades of the British presence on Cyprus. The British government in Cyprus was acutely aware of Turkey's predicament, even when Turkey would officially downplay their dire situation of a decimated population. The continuation of the presence of the Muslim minority in Cyprus was crucial for the viability of British imperialism. The strategy of divide and rule has not only divided territories and populations along ethnic, religious, and linguistic lines, but also has also divided communities into collaborating elites and resisting masses. Like in other colonies, the British government in Cyprus understood that the existence of a minority could be valuable and used as a legitimizing reason for colonialism in order to deny the ambition of the majority of the population to overthrow the colonial rule. So the British government attempted to do whatever it was possible in order to retain the Muslim population on the island. So while there was actually a time limit for those optants to emigrate to Turkey, the British government flexibly ignored it. And the British government at the same time also imposed a fee in order to block the emigration waves to Anatolia. Overall, the exact numbers of the Cypriot emigrants to Anatolia are difficult to estimate, but some accounts that follow official figures suggest that over 9,000 Cypriots left the island for Anatolia. That would be close to 1/5 of the Muslim population in Cyprus at the time. Many of them eventually returned to Cyprus, frustrated by the poor conditions they met in Anatolia. So in conclusion, I would like to stress that the value of Cyprus for the British Empire has been dynamically evolving since the late 19th century. In the aftermath of the First World War, Cyprus gained additional importance due to the evolving circumstances in the other British areas of interest in the Eastern Mediterranean. And nevertheless, since the advent of the British rule in Cyprus, the well-established strategy of divide and rule was followed rigorously. So, as shown by the contextualization of the British stance regarding the immigration of Muslim Cypriots to Anatolia during the so-called period, the interwar period, the continuing presence of a sizable minority community was of paramount importance for the perpetuation of British rule of the island. And finally, when it comes to the Lausanne Treaty and the Lausanne Conference, and when it comes to assess the British role in the Lausanne Conference, there is an urgent need to place it again within the evolving global context, where the British Empire was a superpower, but was a superpower in decline. Thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, I am very pleased to be presenting to you today. The topic of my presentation is the Soviet Union, Japan, France, and the Treaty of Lausanne, different methods in successful diplomacy. Let us start by considering the facts. The organization of the world after the First World War was a complex and lengthy task, even for many years. This is not surprising. The war destroyed three empires at once: Russian, Ottoman, and Austro-Hungarian. A previous attempt to regulate post-war relations with Turkey and legitimize the division of the territories of the former Ottoman Empire was the Treaty of Sevres. The attempt was unsuccessful. The Turks agreed but subsequently refused to ratify due to unfavorable conditions. The composition of the participants in the new conference was wider. The Lausanne Conference was attended by Britain, France, Italy, Greece, Romania, Spain, Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes. Japan, the United States, represented by an observer, and Turkey. First and foremost, a serious difference between this conference and others was the presence of the Soviet Union. The Entente authorities limited the participation of the Soviet and Bulgarian delegations to only discussing the issue of the regime of the Black Sea Straits. The Soviet government declared a protest against the consistent church, but it became possible to take part in the conference and lead a delegation led by People's Council for Foreign Affairs chair. The Turks were very lucky in this, since the Moscow Treaty of Friendship and Brotherhood of 1921 had already been signed. Under this treaty, Turkey received a gift from Russia of significant territories. Immediately after the signing of the document, the Turks were provided with financial and military assistance. The Turkish delegation took with them by train more than 8 tons of gold. The Soviet delegation spoke at the conference with the Soviet Union platform on the entire range of issues of Middle Eastern policy, which were considered by the conference participants. The Soviet government's program was as follows: on the issue of the borders of the Turkish state. The Soviet Union, in accordance with the Moscow Treaty, had to fulfill its political obligations to Turkey to protect the borders specified in the national vow that is recorded in the fundamental Turkish legal act about the statehood of Turkey. On the issue of Turkey's external debts, demand the cancellation of all external debts. On the issue of capitulations, Turkey must stand resolutely against capitulations in any form. On the issue of Bulgaria cutting off a piece of Turkish territory as access to the Aegean Sea, instead propose the establishment of a transit route for Bulgaria through Turkish territory. On the issue of national minorities in Turkey, demands the convening of a special conference to resolve this issue not only in Turkey but also in all other countries. The project of the Soviet delegation on the issue of the Straits, the main provisions of which were formulated by Lenin, provided for the restoration of the rights of the Turkish people to the territory and water space belonging to them, the closure of the Straits in peacetime and war for military and armed vessels, as well as military aviation of all countries except Turkey, and complete freedom of major shipping. At the end of November, the Soviet delegation arrived in Lausanne. Immediately upon arrival, it demanded to be allowed to resolve all issues at the Lausanne conference. Everyone was looking forward to the speeches of the Soviet delegates. According to the general admission of the European press, their presence supported the Turkish resistance. In a conversation with a correspondent of the American newspaper Chicago Tribune on the 3rd December, a representative of the Turkish delegation stated on behalf of Ismet Pasha that the Turks themselves will be present at the meeting almost in the role of observers. The Russians would lead an active offensive on the issue of the Straits. On the 1st of December, the head of the Soviet delegation, Chicherin, spoke at a meeting of the Straits Commission, welcoming the convening of the Lausanne Conference, aimed at establishing peace in the Middle East. The Soviet representative noted that the delegations of Russia, Ukraine, and Georgia, unfortunately, were not allowed to participate in all conference commissions. Mr. Chicherin stated that the Soviet delegation would strive to implement the following. First of all, equality of the position and rights of Russia and its allies with the position and rights of other powers, and the preservation of peace and security of the territories of Russia and its allied republics, as well as the freedom of their economic relations with other countries. Further, the head of the Soviet delegation, reserving the right to review all projects on the Straits, outlines the basic principle of the Soviet program: permanent freedom of merchant shipping and peaceful maritime communications in the Bosphorus, in the Sea of Marmara, and in the Dardanelles must be ensured absolutely and without any restrictions. The preservation of peace in the Black Sea and the safety of its shores, as well as the preservation of peace in the Middle East and the security of Constantinople, must be firmly guaranteed, which means that the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus, both in peacetime and in wartime, must be permanently closed to the military and armed ships, as well as for military aircraft of all countries, with the exception of Turkey. Recognizing that the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus belong to Turkey, the Soviet delegation spoke out for the restoration and preservation in full of the rights of the Turkish people in their territories and to their borders. Mr. Chichera further explained why the issue of the Straits was of vital interest to the Soviet republics. First of all, the Straits are of enormous economic importance. A lot of grain exports from Russia before the war ran through the ports of the Black and Azov Seas. The Straits are even more important from a defense point of view from the moment, according to the armistice of Madras, the military fleets of the powers were able to enter the Black Sea. The security of the Soviet republics was under constant threat. The Entente powers supplied the armies of Denikin and Brandy. They occupied Odessa, Nikolaev, Sebastopol, Kherson, Batum, and other coastal cities of the Black Sea. In 1921, the Allied squadron fought against the Georgian people who took power into their own hands. The head of the Soviet delegation emphasized that the opening of the Straits to warships affected the interests of not only Soviet Russia and its allies, but also the Turkish people. On this issue, Chichera noted the coincidence of the points of view of Russia and Turkey. As proof, Chichera read Article 4 of the Turkish national vow. The security of Constantinople, the capital of the empire and the seat of the Caliphate and the Ottoman government, read the pledge, as well as the security of the Sea of Marmara, must be protected from any encroachment on them. Once this principle has been established and accepted, the undersigned are ready to accept any decision which may be adopted by a common agreement between the Ottoman government on the one hand and the powers concerned on the other, with a view to securing the opening of the straits to world trade and international communications. The Soviet declaration made a strong impression. Everyone was waiting for Curzon's response, but he did not take the initiative to fight the Soviet delegation. He nominated representatives of the Balkan countries against the Soviet delegation. By preliminary agreement, Curzon intended to open the battle with the performance of two coastal Black Sea countries. Then he himself had to act as the defender. The chairman of the Romanian delegation, on behalf of his government, outlines the essentially Entente point of view. The Romanian delegate demanded the passage of not only commercial but also military ships through the straits without any reservations or restrictions, demilitarization of the straits, and control over them by an international commission similar to the Danube under the leadership of the League of Nations. It was decided to convene the next meeting in several days. At the meeting on the 6th of December, Curzon made a response speech directed entirely against the Soviet delegation. Following Curzon, the French delegate spoke. He openly supported the British position. The same provisions, in a less explicit formulation, were developed by the representative of Italy. Mr. Chicherian spoke out against Curzon. He ridiculed Curzon for attempting to assume the role of protector of the Black Sea countries. Initially, he said, the Entente disarmed Bulgaria and deprived it of the right to protect its security. Here at the conference, Lord Curzon takes care of the safety of Bulgaria by opening the Black Sea to English ships. Is Romania a neighbor of Russia since yesterday? Asked Chicherian. Meanwhile, she never objected to the closure of the straits. Listening to Mr. Chairman, Chicherian said, I got the impression that the main idea of his exposition was the creation of a system directed against Russia. We offer you peace, and you are stretching out the struggle against us ad infinitum. Russia is at the beginning of a new period, and we want to begin this period by creating strong conditions of peace around us, while we want to put us in conditions that force us to fight. The Russian Revolution made the Russian people a nation, all the energy of which is concentrated in its government, with a force unprecedented in history. If a fight is forced on him, he will not give it. You may be worried because our horsemen have reappeared on the heights of the Pamirs, and because you no longer have before used the king pole of the idiot who ceded the right to you, King Kush. But we offer you not fight, but peace based on the principle of the mediastinum between us and on the principle of freedom and sovereignty of Turkey. The decisive speech of the Soviet delegation made a strong impression on the conference and the press. Despite this, the Balkan delegates declared their agreement with the Entente plan. Lord Curzon took up the Turkish proposal. He agreed to negotiate a certain limitation on naval forces passing through the straits. To discuss military technical issues, Curzon proposed creating a commission of experts. The Soviet delegate immediately demanded that the message to be published in the press include that the Russian delegation, along with Turkey, would take part in the commission of experts. In response, Lord Curzon stated that a number of military technical issues concern only the Allies and Turkey. It was clear that England was eager to negotiate with the Turks in the absence of Soviet delegates. On the 9th of December, the head of the Soviet delegation, in a note addressed to Lord Curzon, protested against the exclusion of Russian representatives from the Commission of Experts. On the 12th of December, the Soviet delegate appeared before the Commission of Experts. It turned out that they had been coordinating the Entente project and Turkish proposals for several days. The next day, the Soviet delegation made a new written protest. The fifth meeting of the Commission was scheduled for the 18th of December. The Soviet delegation introduced its counter-project, insisting on prohibiting access to the straits for military vessels in peacetime. The proposal of the Soviet representatives allowed that in certain completely exceptional cases and for special purposes, the Turkish government has the right to allow light military vessels, with the exception of submarines, to pass through the straits. The same exception was allowed by the Soviet project for light military ships of neutral affiliation during the war, when Turkey itself remains neutral. If Turkey takes part in the war, then the admission of military corps of other powers and subject to conditions that Turkey considers necessary. Despite the conciliatory nature of the new Soviet proposal, the conference did not discuss it. On the 19th of December, Lord Curzon moved to reject it. The Lausanne Conference entitled a period of discussions of individual details, since basically the issue of the straits had already been resolved. And this work happened behind the scenes of the conference. Lord Curzon has argued several times that the commission of experts was created only to clarify certain technical issues. But one day, in the materials sent out by the secretary of the conference, a special body was indicated under the name Commission for Experts to study the regime of the straits. At the same time, the participants were representatives of England, France, and Italy on the one hand, and Turkey on the other hand. Here it was already officially stated that the innocent experts, who excited only to give explanations, in fact constitute a subcommittee of the Strait Commission. at which the Entente powers represented themselves and their vessels, and from which Soviet representatives were excluded. Curzon was clear and hard to put an end to the issue of the Straits in order to quickly get rid of the Soviet delegates. Essentially, he achieved his intended goal by imposing his project of the Straits region on the Turks. Now he could only observe the progress of the struggle between France and Turkey. The Turkish delegation categorically demanded the abolition of the capitulation regime. The Allies agreed to terminate it. However, they insisted on the introduction of new guarantees, which were essentially the same capitulations. The Allies agreed, for example, that all conflicts between foreigners living in Turkey should be resolved by Turkish tribunals, but these bodies were to be formed by European lawyers who would be recommended by the International Hague Tribunal. To persuade the Turks to agree, Curzon proposed maintaining the transitional regime for 10 years. He threatened that otherwise foreigners would refuse to bring their capital to Turkey. The Japanese delegate, Baron Genshi, also persistently persuaded the Turks to make concessions. Japan, he said, took 20 years to free itself from capitulation. Therefore, the Turks must come to terms with the transitional regime. One should note here that during the years of foreign military intervention, Japan occupied northern Sakhalin only after the establishment of diplomatic relations between the Soviet Union and Japan in January 1925. The Japanese troops leave the northern part of Sakhalin. The Turks did not yield. Then the chairman of the commission put forward a compromise proposal to create a special commission in Turkey consisting of 5 members appointed by the Turkish government, so that 3 of them would be invited from the International Hague Tribunal. This commission was asked to outline a list of candidates for Turkish courts. And then Lord Curzon presented the Turks on behalf of England, France, and Italy with an ultimatum proposal to sign the draft agreement on the Straits. The Turks were given a 5-day period to respond to the ultimatum. To put additional pressure on the Turks on the issue of Mosul, Lord Curzon brought Iraq to the stage. On the day the ultimatum was presented to the Turks, King Hussein addressed the Lausanne conference with a no. Lord Curzon proposed to remove the issue of Mosul from discussion and refer it to the League of Nations. On the 1st of February, when discussing Curzon's proposal, the Soviet delegation made a declaration in which it emphasized its strong disagreement with the draft treaty. The issue of the Straits cannot be resolved without the participation of Russia, Ukraine, and Georgia. In essence, Curzon achieved his goal. He managed, by removing Turkey from the Soviet Union, to impose on it his plan for neutralizing the Straits, thereby creating a threat to the Soviet country. He also managed to achieve some success in securing Mosul for England. All that remained was a quarrel between France and Turkey. Curzon achieved this too, having divided the Lausanne Conference into a number of commissions. He singled out and more or less settled those issues that interested England, the Straits, Mosul. Thus, financial and economic issues remained unresolved, in which the French were especially interested. France invested more than 4 billion francs in Turkey, which accounted for over 50% of all foreign investments. She owned more than 60% of the Ottoman debt. France bided its time with its demands. This country hoped that the Turks would not accept the English conditions, and then this country would be able to act as a conciliator. When the French delegates realized that Curzon had bypassed them, it was already too late. The French press began to furiously attack Curzon. The French press gloated that in the duel between Chicherin and Curzon, Chicherin's reply turned out to be longer, sharper, and faster. Some newspapers openly declared that Curzon was Turkey's worst enemy. The French tried to correct the situation. The French delegate Bonaparte entered private negotiations with Ismet Pasha. He made it clear to him that the united front, on behalf of which Lord Curzon presented ultimatum demands to the Turks, did not actually exist. Bonaparte assured that the French delegation was in favor of negotiating with the Turks, not in the language of ultimatums, but in the most destructive way. Following this, the French delegation proposed that interest on Turkish debts be paid in gold, and that the Turks grant France concessions, mainly in the area of the Baghdad railway. On the 1st of February, the British and French left Lausanne. The attention of all of Europe was focused on the Ruhr conflict. On the 7th of February, the Soviet delegation also left Lausanne. The Soviet delegation warned the conference secretariat that messages about the place and day of the continuation of the conference should be sent to the Soviet representative, Mr. Vorovsky in Rome. The Soviet Union did not sign the Convention on the Black Sea Straits due to conditions unacceptable to Moscow. This issue was resolved only in 1936 in Montreal. At the first stage of the Lausanne Conference, the Soviet delegation tried its best to help Turkey. The main provisions of the decision on the issues of the Straits were formed by Lenin himself and were as follows: the complete closure of the Straits on the Black Sea for foreign military vessels in peacetime and wartime, free merchant ships. The original plan for England was recognized by Russia as a complete violation of the sovereignty and independence of not only Turkey itself, but also Russia. The second stage of negotiations at the Lausanne Conference continued without the participation of the Soviet side, since right before the start one of the Russian representatives, Vorovsky, was killed. The Turkish delegation was left completely without supporters, which led to noticeable concessions. However, the Entente countries also offered a number of significant bonuses to Turkey. The Soviet point of view without support was completely destroyed by British diplomats and therefore practically not considered. At this stage, questions regarding the future peace treaty with Turkey were mainly shaped. A number of significant documents were signed, including the Convention on the Regions of the Straits and the Lausanne Peace Treaty of 1923. The Lausanne Agreement was signed by Great Britain, France, Italy, Japan, Greece, Romania, and Yugoslavia on the one hand and Turkey on the other. On the day the Treaty of Lausanne was signed, Belgium and Portugal joined it. A few days earlier, on the 17th of July, a telegram was received in Moscow from the Secretary General of the conference, who notified us that on the 21st of July, a peace treaty with Turkey and the Strait Convention would be signed. The Secretary General of the conference inquired, does Russia continue to remain in the position that its representatives took on the 1st of February? The telegram asked whether Soviet Russia was ready to sign the Convention of Lausanne simultaneously with all countries or in Constantinople no later than the 14th of August. The Soviet government, in a reply telegram, repeated all its objections to the agreement of the Straits, protested against the violation of the rights of the Turkish people, but stated that wishing to use all opportunities to promote peace, it was ready to sign the convention. If the experience of applying the convention shows that it does not sufficiently guarantee the trade interests and security of the Soviet republics, the telegram added. Then they will be forced to raise the issue, suspending its operation. After some time, the Soviet government proposed moving the signing of the convention to Rome, where this act took place on the 14th of August. It is often said that as a result of active support from the Soviet Union, the Turks managed to achieve a lot on Lausanne, preserve the territorial integrity of Turkey, avoid a regime of capitulation and avoid indemnities, settle the external debt to the Ottoman Empire in the most gentle manner possible, and maintain control over foreign concessions in Turkey. This is a key point in all of this, so let me finish on this. I'd like to finish now by thanking you all for your kind attention. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Hello everybody, this is Dragoș Matescu from the Romanian Diplomatic Institute. I'm Director for Analysis in the Romanian Diplomatic Institute and I represent the Institute in this conference. Thank you for inviting us. I am also a researcher on Turkish politics among other things, having lived in Turkey, in Izmir, more precisely, Smyrna as you call it, for 20 years. I'm teaching at the university there. Congratulations for choosing this topic. Of course, is the centennial of the anniversary of since the adoption of the Lausanne Treaty. I proposed as a theme, not necessarily a comparison, but inevitably we think of it, I think of it as a comparison, but without treating it methodologically as a comparison. The situation of Romania under the Treaty of Trianon, treaties of Paris in general, and the situation of Turkey under the Treaty of Lausanne, with all that I will not insist on the what happened during those times with the Turkish War of Independence, War of Liberation in fact, because also, parenthesis, I want to compress everything in about 10 minutes so we can send securely this video to you. So I took some notes that I should not, with things that I should not forget about. Why a comparison? First of all, because I chose to dwell on the issue of minorities, and it's something that sticks out in reading the Treaty of Lausanne. An interpretation that was not found in the practice of the implementation of the treaties of Paris. The treaties of Paris, we know, dedicated an important, stressed and dedicated important lines to the idea of the rights of minority, the protection of minority. They're not complete because there are no definitions there involved, such as defining an ethnic minority, defining a linguistic minority, defining even a religious minority. It's just the idea of protecting them. The interpretation in Europe for the good or for the bad was, as we know, somehow dealing with minorities in general. There was no, at least there was no definition excluded. For Hitler, Germans were Germans, for instance, with the bad consequences that we know about. Germans were Germans regardless of religion, for instance, regardless of their how shall I put it, options in terms of defining themselves. In fact, Hitler did not give that choice. At the same time, new states were created with the case of Romania under the Treaty of Trianon, which actually it's a treaty between the Allies and Hungary. But that practically gave a large swath of territory, in fact Transylvania, an entire province, to Romania after the war. That's why the National Day of Romania is the 1st of December 1918, when formally the Grand Union took place. Romania is a country of union between what were two provinces, Moldavia and Wallachia, united in 1859, and then in 1918 we have the union also with Transylvania and other provinces that are now not anymore part of the national territory. They are part of Ukraine, North Bukovina, and the Republic of Moldova currently. But in any case, being a country of union, a state created by the union of provinces, that meant taking in minorities. To this day, up to 15–16% of the population is consisting of minorities, and there have been variations in the state policy regarding minorities. A very strong impulse to assimilation in the interwar period, even with the fascist connotations, especially under the for a few years under fascist government or fascist policies, but the tendency to assimilate was also very strong throughout the entire interwar period and Second World War. However, in the spirit of the treaties of Paris, the idea of recognizing minorities was also there. Even whether you treat it badly or wrongly or positively, if you do positive or negative discrimination, the idea of recognizing them was there, not attempting to deny their existence. This is later perpetuated under communism. Communists came to countries in Russian communists, of course, the Soviets, came with their tanks into Eastern Europe to impose communism, yes, and their main allies in some of these countries, including Romania, were not actually the dominant groups, the majorities, the cultural majorities, ethnic, religious or whatever, but the minorities. In the case of Romania, for instance, there were many Jewish names. There were many German names, there were many Hungarian names at the top of the communist hierarchy from the first years until very late in the 1970s, when I was born in 1980s. And this period was under that slogan, proletarians all over the world unite, meaning this social, economic definition and identity was supposedly relevant for the regimes, the communist regimes, for the communist bloc, rather than cultural identity. And I remember in the propaganda, the Soviet propaganda also, Romanian propaganda, there was a lot of bragging about ethnic differences being recognized and advertised, and but united, as I said, under the communist flag, being in fact, and let's not forget that the Communist International was the first form of global propaganda under that label, the Communist International, right? 1, 2, 3. And this continues in Europe after the fall of communism, with countries in Eastern Europe having as imperative, foreign policy imperative, integration into the Euro-Atlantic community, meaning NATO, which came for Romania in 2004, and European Union, which for Romania came later, together with Bulgaria in 2007, accompanied by scrutiny, monitoring, conditionalities that were linked to the OSCE, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and Council of Europe, meaning the treaties under these, which included human rights, minority rights, and all the attributes of what we would describe as not only democracy, but liberal democracy. In the classical perspective, democracy being only about the forms in which power is constituted in democratic ways, or authority is constituted in democratic ways. What happens between the elections, which are the main democratic forms of constitution, what happens between elections is about how authority, once elected, once appointed, behaves. And if it behaves liberally, then you have liberal democracy, and that includes respect for minorities. After 1993, included in the Maastricht conditionality, Maastricht Treaty and Maastricht conditionality, as fundamental for the functioning of states, yes, as liberal democracies, but eventually fundamental for the functioning of states as markets, especially when we talk about a common market of 15, then 27, 28, 27 member states. A common market cannot function without the rule of law, without some mechanisms to fight corruption permanently, not to eradicate it, it's impossible, and also respect for all kinds of minorities. And it leaves to the member states right to define them, and this is the fundamental issue here, definition. But respect for, without saying it in all treaties, starts from recognition. So we have a continuity here from, of course, from the 19th century, from the Treaty of Berlin and others that represent an evolution in the treaty diplomacy regarding the rights of minorities, building on the assumed fact that minorities exist and states recognize their existence. From this perspective, which, by the way, if I have the time to put it in a text, I would gladly do it for a conference volume, for your conference volume, but it's not yet a promise because my agenda is really, really busy. If I have that chance to write about it, this would represent what I said up to now. It would represent a sort of methodological basis from which to judge, to understand, to look at the Lausanne Treaty, which, okay, we know it's about also Greece, Turkey, insisting there, both sides, that minorities have to be defined in terms of religion. And that's why the entire section dedicated to minorities seems like dealing only with the religious minorities, hence the interpretation on both sides with the respective consequences. In the case of Turkey, that was the seeds of wrath, the seeds of conflict between the state and minorities, because initially the Kurds accepted the idea that they are part of the nation. They cannot be. They were presented with this understanding that minorities are second-rate citizens, and it was at the time, in the context, historical context, it was logical for that time to think like that. So they were tempted with the idea of being part of the, being first-rate citizens, and in order to have that status, to be part of the Muslim majority. That is about the Kurds. But that meant not recognizing their identity, their distinctiveness. And they speak a very different language from Turkish. They have a different history that is only over the last, since the Ottoman Empire, they were part of the Ottoman Empire, but they benefited from some, depending from vilayet to vilayet, from region to region, various degrees of autonomy, at least economic autonomy, and that's how the riches of the Kurdish region have a long tradition that goes back to the Ottoman times. Then the Alevis that are not Alawi, let's not confuse. The Alevis that are a very heterogeneous group of sects. Ioannis Grigoriadis from Bilkent has studied them, and his studies are wonderful about that. That are not Sunni Muslim, not to mention the Shias, the other denominations. They are not recognized, their existence is not recognized. Now, this had consequences because it led to conflicts with the Alevi community, crimes that are not punished to this day. Only the Mademak Hotel massacre, if you mention, but that comes in continuation of others. And with the Kurds, we know it's a history of conflict, stemming from many reasons, but fundamental being the fact that they are not recognized as a distinct community. In Europe, the recognition allowed for natural evolution, various policies, ranging from recognition of minority rights, but also in the case of Macedonia, for instance, it is in Romania also the talk that they are not minorities and majorities, they are nations constitutive of the state, historically constitutive of the state. The logic being that without the even tacit agreement of minorities, the respective states would not survive. And indeed, historical realities have proven that countries like Czechoslovakia, for instance, had to split because of two groups deciding to part ways, the Slovaks and Serbians, and the Czechs, sorry, peacefully, the so-called Velvet Revolution. Violently in the case of Yugoslavia, with the consequence of independence of the six constitutive republics. In the case of Turkey, under the Treaty of Lausanne, that negation, that denial of the existence of minorities led to conflict. And we know the consequences. I will conclude now, drawing attention to the fact that we talk about an interpretation of the Treaty of Lausanne that was deliberate, but that overlooked that even under the Treaty of Lausanne, there can be a positive interpretation to recognize linguistic minorities. And sometimes I encountered opposition from in Turkey, in conferences and so on, criticism that I don't understand very well the language of the treaty and so on, because I draw attention to Article 39. It is in the section, of course, dedicated to minorities, and reading it, think with mind open to both alternatives. It can be about religious minorities, but it can also leave room for some sort of recognition and of linguistic minorities, and dealing with those minorities in terms of rights, in terms of policies regarding their status. And it reads as follows: Turkish nationals belonging to non-Muslim minorities will enjoy the same civil and political rights as Muslims. But then it goes on: all inhabitants of Turkey, without distinction of religion, shall be equal before the law. Differences of religion, creed, confession shall not prejudice any Turkish nationals in matters relating to the enjoyment of civil political rights. as for instance admission to public employment, functions and honors, or the exercise of professions and industries. And then no restrictions shall be imposed on the free use by any Turkish national, without reference to minorities, of any language in private intercourse, in commerce, religion, in the press, or in publications of any kind, or at public meetings, without indicating political meetings, cultural meetings, or whatever. Notwithstanding, and this is the last paragraph in the Article 39, notwithstanding the existence of the official language, adequate facilities shall be given to Turkish nationals of non-Turkish speech, so no reference to religion, for the oral use of their own language before the courts. So in the justice system, it's also mentioned that. So these last two, the last two paragraphs in Article 39 could represent the basis if a history of tolerance and state friendliness toward diversity, toward cultural diversity would be there, would permit an approach even under this treaty for dealing with linguistic minorities. Thank you. It was an honor to be invited. I hope you have a good conference. And again, if time permits, I would gladly contribute with the text to the final version of the conference paper. Good luck and have a good day. Thank you.
You can start, please.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation for this conference. My topic is the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes at the Peace Conference in Lausanne in 1922 and 1923. In order to understand the Yugoslav stand during this conference, we have to address first the Yugoslav foreign policy. After the First World War, the most important factor in the Yugoslav foreign policy was Italian menace, and this menace lasted until 1938. So in the first post-war years, Yugoslavia alone, and together with its allies from the Little Entente, Czechoslovakia and Romania, was searching the ally or at least friendly state among the other European powers. And in 1922, the Little Entente had chosen France as their friendly and later allied power. And it is important to notice that during 1922, the Anglo-French war intent was coming to its end. And regarding the Yugoslav Balkan policy, it was defined by two main factors, by the historic experience of Serbs with particular nations in the Balkans, and by the contemporary situation in the region. Regarding the Greece and Turkey, Yugoslavia was not showing much interest in for these two countries immediately after the First World War. The problem with Greece was the Serbian experience from 1915, when Serbian and Greek side were differently defining their allied obligations. And after that, in the circles of the Serbian elite, no one believed to the Greek word. The exception was Eleftherios Venizelos. Regarding Turkey, the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes did not pay much attention to this state. This was the consequence of the Yugoslav delegation on the Paris Peace Conference conclusion that European great powers were not intending to allow Turks to return to Europe. And the Peace Treaty of Seville just made another guarantee of this attitude. So the ruling circles in Belgrade did not pay much attention what was going on in the Asia Minor, at least not until the Greek defeat in the Battle of Sangarius in September 1921. Only after that, government in Belgrade started contacts, unofficial diplomatic contacts, with representatives of Kemal Mustafa Pasha. And these contacts were lasting through the first part, during the end of the 1921 and first part of 1922. So the situation in the Yugoslav Balkan policy in the mid 1922 was that Yugoslav foreign policy was not paying much attention what was going on in the Asia Minor, and was not paying much attention to Greece or Turkey in bilateral relations. And it was really obvious through diplomatic correspondence between Belgrade and legation, Yugoslav legation in Athens, and also between Belgrade and the diplomatic mission in Istanbul. There were not much of work for diplomatic clerks, Yugoslav diplomatic clerks in Athens and Istanbul back at the time. Another important issue for Yugoslavia in bilateral Yugoslav-Greek relations was the question of free trading zone in port of Thessaloniki. This was a really important issue for Yugoslavia, not only for the trade routes, but also as the most significant and most secured route for possible military help in case of the war with Italy. Because in the Adriatic Sea, Italy had the dominant naval power. Yugoslavia was aware that they cannot, in the case of military conflict with Italy, they cannot sustain this naval threat. So Thessaloniki was the main port for possible military help from France, Britain, or some other country. So in 1922 and 1923, especially after the great offensive, great Turkish offensive in Asia Minor and the defeat of the Greek army, Yugoslav government was seeking the ways to make pressure on the Greek government that the Greek side should make some concessions to the Yugoslav side in the question of this free trading zone in port of Thessaloniki. And this bilateral issue was quite obvious in the attitude of the Yugoslav delegation during the peace conference in Lausanne. So before the Greek government was prepared to make concessions to the Yugoslav side, Yugoslav delegation was very inactive during the first phase of the peace conference in Lausanne, and only after the conventions from May 1923 did the Yugoslav delegation made a much more active role and gave stronger support to the Greeks in the peace conference. Regarding the issues which were opened and were on the agenda of the peace conference, the most important for the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes was the question of the autonomous debts. Yugoslav's stand was that Serbia have accepted through the Peace Treaty of London in 1913 to pay those debts which were in connection with former Ottoman territories, which were firstly included in the Kingdom of Serbia in 1913 and later included in the Kingdom of Serb, Croats, and Slovenes. And that Yugoslav state should not accept to repay any other part of the Ottoman debts which were connected with the territories which were not included in the Yugoslav states after 1923. And this was the greatest problem for the Yugoslav delegation, because in this issue, Yugoslav delegation found opposition from the French delegation. And even to aggravate the situation even more, Italian delegation gave the support to the French delegation. So Yugoslavia, which was seeking support in its foreign policy from France against Italian menace, now was in the situation that had to directly oppose to the French-Italian collaboration during the peace conference. In connection with this, there was the other issue of repurchasing of the Ottoman railways. The problem for the Kingdom of Serbs and Croats and Slovenes was that Yugoslavia was accepted to reduce its war reparations from Austria through the peace treaty of Saint-Germain, and in return Yugoslav state was not to pay interest for the Austrian investors in the Ottoman railways. But after the peace treaty of Saint-Germain was signed, French investors bought off this interest from the Austrian investors, and they were saying that Yugoslavia should pay this interests. So in this question also, Yugoslav delegation was finding opposition from the joint French-Italian delegations. So in the two most important issues for Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes, Yugoslavia was facing the joint stand of French and Italian delegation, and this was really awkward situation for Yugoslav state, because Yugoslav foreign policy was expecting French support against the Italian menace. And because since French and Italian delegations did not accept Yugoslav proposition, and Yugoslav proposition in the end was that Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes should sign peace treaty of Lausanne, but with exclusion of those articles which were dealing with Ottoman debts. French and Italian delegation refused this under the pretext that this would be dangerous precedence in the international law, and that Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes don't have right to do it. This was the reason why Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes in the end did not sign the peace treaty of Lausanne, and it in 1923, and it was the same reason, the Ottoman debts were the same reason why the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes didn't sign the peace treaty of Seville in 1920. Other issues which were interested for Yugoslav delegation during the peace conference in Lausanne were many, let's say, offers for the Yugoslav side that Yugoslav army should be involved if the Greek-Turkish war was prolonged. There were offers from British side, Italian side, Greek side, Bulgarian side, Turkish side. Yugoslavia was refusing all these offers. The first offer was from the Lord Curzon in November 1922. He offered unrefundable loan of 3 million pounds, and in return he asked that Yugoslavia should send 100,000 soldiers to Asia Minor to continue the war against the Turks. King Alexander, Prime Minister Nikola Pasic, and Foreign Minister Momcilo Ninčić refused this offer, and Prime Minister Pasic, in one explanatory note to the Yugoslav diplomats, said that Yugoslavia, after the 6 years of bloody wars and many human casualties and war damages they suffered, especially Serbia, they needed at least 50 years of peace to rebuild the state and to surmount all the casualties which people, and not only in human casualties, but also all the material damage they have suffered during 1919, 1918. So this was the main reason why Yugoslav statesmen were not keen to accept any offer to send the Yugoslav army to enter the probable prolongation of the war on the other side. Also, King Alexander was suppressing the ideas among Yugoslav politicians that Yugoslavia and Bulgaria should use this situation in which Greece was found itself after defeat in Asia Minor, and to attack Greece in order to gain territorial access to the Aegean Sea. There were some also there were some also offers from the Ismet Pasha that Yugoslav and Turkish army should attack Greek army, etc. in Thracia, but all these offers were refused. In the second part of the peace conference in Lausanne, there was also another important issue in which Yugoslav delegation was involved. It was a question of ecumenical patriarchy in Constantinople. Ecumenical patriarch Melentius IV asked directly King Alexander and Serbian patriarch Dimitri for support of the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes in order to prevent the Turkish idea that ecumenical patriarchy should be expunged from the Istanbul. And on the instructions of King Alexander, Foreign Minister Momčilo Ninčić have devised strategy together with Greek delegation and Romanian delegation for joint stand during this conference, and they have managed to persuade the great powers that ecumenical patriarchy should remain in Istanbul. There were also some minor issues which were dealt by the Yugoslav delegation, but I will refer to them in my paper because this short time doesn't allow me to tell all about it. And in the end, I would like to conclude that since Ottoman debts were the main issue for the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes during the peace conferences in Paris and later in Lausanne, the Yugoslav states did not sign any treaty of cessation of war with Turkey, and this was done only in December 1925, when Momčilo Ninčić and Yugoslav Foreign Minister Momčilo Ninčić and Turkish Foreign Minister Tevfik Rushtu Bey have reached agreements, and the state of war was ceased between two states. The diplomatic relations were established, and then they signed this strictly confidential notes in which both sides were dealing with the issue of the Ottoman debts. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Now we have, please stay on your camera because I want to ask a question. Now, you said that now the Kingdom of Serbian, Croats, and Slovenes did not sign the agreement, the Treaty of Lausanne.
Yes.
And we can see that they are referred to as that they participated in the Conference of Lausanne. But when we check the signatures in the treaty, we cannot find the signature of the Serbians.
Yes.
Is it correct?
Yes.
Yes. Then, has the kingdom signed some of protocols or something else in the Treaty of Lausanne, or they only participated in the conference, in the negotiations, but they actually didn't?
I don't know. Have they signed some protocols? I didn't go into the details. For me, the main point was about the peace treaty, and I know they didn't sign it.
Okay. Now, when we will prepare the book later on, we will have the chance to discuss because all these professors that analyze the treaty from different angles, maybe we can have also an inner conference, let's say, to clarify issues and then publish the best, let's say, result, the best outcome. We thank you very much for your contribution, and please stay in your line because now it is the time for the students to talk.
Thank you very much.
So, after having technical problems, also in the conference of Lausanne, I would say that they had many problems in essence, to find out a way, because it's a very difficult thing to stay there for many months discussing all these complex issues. Here we will be for less than 1 hour more. So it is the time for the students to present their speeches. And first of all, Ms. Kalergi, as the coordinator, please come here, and then you can call the students. Yes.
Okay, so we will start with some narrative pieces about general themes regarding the Lausanne Treaty. First, we will start with Ms. Vala Vasiou, who will talk to us about refugees.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Vasiliki Vasiou, and I'm happy to open this session. As we embark on a day filled with numerous speeches, I'd like to redirect our attention to a matter that lies to the core of human existence, relationships. In my view, these connections are of utmost importance, and today I want to shed a light on a group of individuals who have endured profound suffering and the refugees affected by the Treaty of Lausanne. The refugees embark on a journey from Turkey to an unfamiliar place that would become their new home. A significant value in Greek and Turkish culture is hospitality, expressed by the term philoxenia, derived from Arabic and corresponding to a Turkish word musafir, meaning visitor or guest. While traditionally associated with travel, these people did not embark on the journey willingly, but out of necessity. Remarkably, despite their forced migration and exposure to new traditions, they retained their own vitality. The essence of hospitality lies to the method of welcoming, entertaining, and nursing the guests. Despite the challenges they faced, the refugees greeted visitors with genuine warmth, guiding them to the most inviting and comfortable rooms and offering them the finest delicacies reserved for such special occasions. Regrettably, the concept of hospitality has evolved over time, with contemporary preferences leaning towards external entertainment. Consequently, values like hospitality are slowly fading away. It is disheartening to witness this loss of such a crucial value, especially considering its role in helping people overcome challenging circumstances and find joy amidst adversity. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Ms. Haribi, who will talk to us about the Armenian people.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sofia Venetia Garidi. In the Lausanne peace talks, the Armenian question emerged as a significant issue demanding attention. On December 10th, Nuragundin Effendi, along with Armenian revolutionaries, asserted the primary demand of creating an Armenian homeland for refugees within any part of Turkey. The Committee for Armenian Representatives met with the Turkish delegation on December 27th to express the Armenians' desire for a residence. As the Lausanne talks broke off on February 4, 1923, France temporarily remaining conveyed its limitations in supporting the Armenian delegation due to a lack of British support. Discussions of the return of Armenians who had fled Turkey ensued during the second phase of the Lausanne Conference, but those obstacles were encountered. The Lausanne Peace Treaty, signed on July 24, 1923, made no mention of Armenians, and promises to Armenians were not upheld. The Armenians expressed disappointment and opposition to the treaty in letters to the League of Nations and the Allied powers on August 9, 1923. These pleas were met with silence. On August 23rd, the petition submitted to Britain by El Pahalian on behalf of Armenian representatives expressed the French government's desire to bring the Armenian question before the League of Nations. The Armenians continued their efforts, writing to the Italian government on September 4th and seeking support from the League of Nations. In conclusion, the promises made to Armenians during the peace talks were unfulfilled, and the Armenians felt abandoned by the great powers. Despite ongoing attempts by some governments to revive the issue, the Armenians continue to face challenges, with the matter being exploited for political gains or as a means to pressure Turkey into concessions. Thank you.
Now we will hear the first part of Greek and Turkish relations from Ms. Maraka.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Aristea Maraka. Welcome. The ongoing dispute between Greece and Turkey revolves around Greece's proposal to expand its territorial waters, bringing the focus squarely onto the contentious issue of capitulation. Specifically, Turkey questions Greece's legitimacy in extending its exclusive economic zone, contending that the Aegean and Mediterranean islands are geographically tied to Asia Minor. Turkey argues that such an expansion would jeopardize its interests, pose risks, and create complications for its trade activities. In light of this complex situation, the author underscores the paramount importance of fostering cooperation and making mutual concessions. On one hand, Greece cites the 1982 Convention on the Law of the Sea, granting signatories the right to extend their exclusive economic zone up to 12 nautical miles. Ultimately, the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923 delineated the borders of the respective coastal states, confirming Greece's sovereignty over many Aegean islands, but excluding Imbros, Tenedos, and Kastellorizo. Turkey renounced its rights and titles of sovereignty over the islands, which were now held by Italy. Thank you.
Now the second of three speeches on the same topic by Ms. Dakoudrou.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Antonia Dakoudrou. The Treaty of Lausanne emerges as a testament to the national struggle of the Greeks for an independent Greece and Turkey's commitment to peaceful coexistence guided by Ataturk's principle, peace at home, peace in the world. Despite facing opposition from the great powers, Greece successfully secured its place in the West through its signature. For Greece, the treaty marked the eradication of the Greek presence from Anatolia, signifying the definitive end of the great idea and ushering in a challenging period of refugee rehabilitation. Christian refugees, unfamiliar with the Greek language, played a pivotal role in the country's development across various fields. Recognizing the harmless nature of Muslims in Western Thrace to Greece and the concern posed by Greeks in Constantinople to Turkey, the Turks targeted the Ecumenical Patriarchate. Despite an unsuccessful attempt to establish a Turkish Orthodox Patriarchate, stability returned to Western Thrace during the interwar period, thanks in part to Venizelos' pragmatic leadership. The threat from Bulgaria led to a Greek-Turkish alliance in 1930, involving significant concessions by Greece to restore friendly and economic relations with Turkey. Subsequent agreements, including the Pact of Friendship in 1930 and the Greek-Turkish Cordial Understanding of 1933, solidified their amicable relations. The Montreux Convention of 1936 allowed Turkey to control the straits, and Greece regained Limnos and Samothrace, nullifying similar clauses in the Treaty of Lausanne. In summary, the journey from the Treaty of Lausanne to subsequent agreements and conventions reflects the involved dynamics and diplomatic efforts between Greece and Turkey, shaping a complex yet ultimately cooperative relationship. Thank you.
And now the third and final speech on the topic by Ms. Faisidou.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rebecca Faisidou. Let us now delve into the historical nuances of minority issues in Greece, primarily concentrated in Western Thrace. The Muslim population and the Pomak villages of northern Xanthi and Rhodope have historically been a focal point of concern. The predominantly Bulgarian dialect spoken by the Pomaks was viewed by Greek authorities as a potential threat to their national consciousness, resulting in economic and social isolation. It's important to note that neither the Pomaks nor the Roma tended to identify themselves as Turks. During the Bulgarian occupation of Western Thrace from 1941 to 1944, the Turkish consulate in Komotini sought to strengthen ties with the Islamic population using minority education as a tool to promote Kemalism. Following the Cyprus-Turkish illegal invasion and occupation in 1974 and the Greek-Turkish dispute over oil rights in the Aegean, a new situation emerged, deviating from the spirit of the Lausanne Treaty. This situation involved sensitive national issues, including sovereignty, the continental shelf airspace, territorial waters, oil reserves, and exclusive economic zone. Despite this, the provisions of the Treaty of Lausanne remain in force, constituting the legal framework for the issues surrounding the minorities. Thank you.
And now Mr. Aristidou will tell us about the Severus syndrome.
Dear guests, representatives of the administrations, fellow students. Today we're gathered in the Cultural Center of the European University of Cyprus to celebrate 100 years from the signature of the Treaty of Lausanne and its multiple dimensions. One of those dimensions, which serves as the prelude or the historical context that led us to the Lausanne Agreement, is the Treaty of Severus, a treaty that has been signed in this particular city of France shortly after the end of World War I. The Ottoman Empire, which was on the losing side of World War I, was forced to sign the Treaty of Severus that ceded a significant amount of its territories to France, the United Kingdom, the Kingdom of Italy, the Kingdom of Greece, and also created occupation zones. All of the above, plus the financial and military restrictions imposed to Turkey in this treaty, are being utilized by Turkish officials today in an action that is known as the Severus syndrome, which is a Turkish attempt to promote an anti-Western rhetoric to convince their people and the international community that the West will consider the partitioning of modern Turkey in the future. The key legal response to the Severus syndrome is the Treaty of Lausanne itself, a new treaty that effectively restored all previous irregularities and has provenly worked as a stability factor in our region for a whole century as we speak. Therefore, in my conclusion, Turkey shouldn't be afraid of France, Greece, or any other nation of the West. The only enemy that Turkey should avoid in order not to engage to a future conflict with the West is its own self. If Turkey does not attempt to revision or deny the Treaty of Lausanne in the future, it shall remain a healthy nation, treated by the Treaty of Lausanne from any kind of syndromes. Thank you very much.
And now Ms. Mistakidou will explain to us the impact of the British media on the Treaty of Lausanne.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sofia Mistakidou. Let us now journey back to the aftermath of World War I, a period marked by significant geopolitical transformation. The conclusion of hostilities between the Allies and the Ottoman Empire materialized in the signing of the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923. This pivotal agreement addressed a myriad of issues ranging from property rights and refugees to matters concerning minorities, while also demarcating the contemporary boundaries of Turkey. It is plausible that a British newspaper, including The Times, The Guardian, and the Daily Telegraph, provided extensive coverage, evaluation, and opinions on the Treaty of Lausanne and its far-reaching consequences. Historical accounts suggest that the British media in particular may have scrutinized the complexities leading to the treaty, expressing apprehension at the fervently nationalistic sentiments emanating from the Ankara government. The Treaty of Lausanne's role in restoring stability to the region following the tumultuous aftermath of World War I would likely have been underscored in the British media of the time. It might have been portrayed as a diplomatic triumph, resolving conflicts and inaugurating a new chapter in Turkey's relation with allies. The nuanced and complex nature of the treaty shaping the post-World War I order likely prompt diverse opinions in British media. Editorial pieces and opinion articles may have presented varying perspectives of the fairness and utility of the treaty's term, reflecting the multifaceted discourse surrounding this historic agreement. Thank you.
And now the last speaker for this first part, Ms. Defriou, will tell us about British and Turkish relations.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Hélène Defriou. Let us now close this first season of Nervates and delve into a pivotal period in history, the aftermath of Great War, which witnessed the dramatic transformation of the Ottoman Empire's fortunes. Initially aligning with the Central Powers during the conflict, the Ottoman Empire faced complete disintegration at the war's conclusion. Emerging from the house, Britain ascended as the predominant power in the Middle East. On the 24th of July 1923, a historic milestone was reached with the signing of the final peace treaty in Lausanne. Subsequently, on the 6th of August 1924, the treaty came into force, ushering in the new era of peace in the region. This marked a profound shift in the dynamics between Turkey and Britain, prompting the realization that the conference platform was indispensable for achieving political reconciliation. The period following the Great War marked a significant turning point, witnessing the collapse of the Ottoman Empire and the rise of Britain as a dominant force in the Middle East. The Treaty of Lausanne and the preceding Treaty of Sevres stand as pivotal documents encapsulating the complex dynamics and changing relationships between these historical entities. Thank you.
And now let us pass to the second part. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you myself to this second part, the narrative simulation of the diplomatic negotiations. I am Elena Kalergi and I will be narrating for Great Britain. Before delving into the details of the Lausanne Conference, it's crucial to acknowledge the diplomatic groundwork laid with our main allies, France and Italy. Collaborative meetings with President Raymond Poincaré and Prime Minister Benito Mussolini laid the foundation for a unified Allied front during negotiations, though certain discrepancies did exist. The conference officially commenced on November 20th, 1922, dividing representatives into committees to address specific issues ranging from the demilitarization of the Straits to the economic and financial considerations that arise. The Turkish delegation initially proved uncooperative, presenting unrealistic demands. Not until our Foreign Minister Lord Curzon's impactful speech on December 13th did the Turks show any signs of compromise by joining the League of Nations and accepting Greece's proposed truce. During the Christmas holidays of 1922, while our allies opted to return home, we, along with the Turks, remained in Lausanne to draft the initial treaty. However, our progress faced a significant setback as the Russo-Turkish front contested several clauses, leading to the renegotiation of crucial issues. The complex issue of the Ottoman debt posed another notable challenge, leading to its exclusion from the Lausanne Convention's agenda on July 6, 1923. An independent agreement was reached on July 9th after Ankara ratified the Allies' proposed peace treaty. With the last minor issues settled, the Treaty of Lausanne was finally signed in July 24th, 1923. This marked a significant success for His Majesty's diplomatic service, regaining lost territories and orchestrating a conference that shaped international law in the Eastern Mediterranean region. As my colleagues will elaborate further, the multidimensional impact of this treaty extends far beyond the immediate region. Refer also to Dr. Xipoglia's speech for further analysis on the topic. Thank you for your time and attention. And now we will pass on to Ms. Safari, the representative for France.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am El Safari, and I'm here to narrate the representation of France and the Franco-British relationship in the Middle East during the interwar years, particularly representing France and its interests in this complex geopolitical landscape. Our collaboration with Britain began during the First World War, when in 1915 and 1916 we fought together against the Ottomans. A crucial agreement, the Sykes-Picot Accords, outlined the division of the Arab provinces of the Ottoman Empire. While Palestine was designated as a Franco-British condominium, Britain aimed to exclude France from Egypt and the Suez Canal. France, during the 1919 Paris Peace Conference, made concessions in the Middle East but asserted control over Syria to protect Catholic minorities, safeguard economic interests, and secure status in North African colonies through a direct and uncompromising mandate system. British utilization of Arab and Jewish nationalism during World War I raised French concerns about its potential to spread to North Africa, where Arab nationalism could jeopardize both British and French interests. The attempted assassination of Syria's first French High Commissioner, General Gouraud, in 1921 heightened tensions. France believed that the British ruling Transjordan, where the criminals sought refuge, were somehow involved. The dispute persisted until 1925, when extradition agreements were established between Syria and Transjordan. Despite these political intricacies, the military affairs of both countries' mandates fostered collaboration. Beyond traditional diplomatic representation, liaison officers facilitated communication between military authorities, fostering regular aerial liaisons between the French Air Force in Syria and the Royal Air Force in Palestine, Transjordan or Iraq. These interactions, occurring at monthly meetings, provided opportunities to enhance relations between France and Britain. Professor today will analyze more about France and the treaty. Thank you.
And now let us hear from the Italian representative, Mr. Cosonis.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Savas Kozonis and I have the narrative for representing Italy. I am honored to stand before you today and express my gratitude for your presence. Special thanks to Professor Mr. Halapastamelos for providing us with the opportunity to participate in this conference. As we commemorate the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Peace Treaty of Lausanne on July 23, 1923, I will shed light on its significance, particularly in relation to Italy. Italy, as a contracting party, played a decisive role in sharpening and concluding the historic treaty. The Treaty of Lausanne in relation to Italy. Brief historical precedent of the treaty. In 1912, following the Italo-Turkish War, Italy occupied the Dodecanese, excluding Castellorizo. In 1919, the Titoni-Venizelos Treaty ceded sovereignty of the Dodecanese to Greece, except for Rhodes, to be determined by a future referendum. However, Italy denounced this treaty in 1920, leading to the Treaty of Sèvres in August of the same year. The Bonino-Venizelos Agreement, almost ratifying the previous treaty, was signed. In 1922, after the fall of Venizelos and the Asia Minor catastrophe, Italy denounced the Treaty of Sèvres. Italian aspirations and progress towards the conclusion of the treaty. The Lausanne Conference, convened on November 20, 1922, provided Mussolini with an international platform. Italy aimed to preserve its territorial and diplomatic gains, aligning with Turkey against increased British and French influence. Disagreements with the Turks, particularly over Castellorizo, were resolved through bilateral negotiations, and Italy ratified the Treaty of Lausanne on August 6, 1924. The importance and validity of the treaty to date. Conclusions. The Treaty of Lausanne allowed Italy to achieve its negotiation goals, maintaining influence in the Eastern Mediterranean. Today, a century after its conclusion, the treaty remains in force, serving as a reference point for peace and coexistence in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East. Despite recent challenges and attempts to question the treaty, especially by Turkey, it is crucial to recognize its enduring importance. The questioning of the Treaty of Lausanne jeopardizes the framework of peace, security, and prosperity in the wider Mediterranean and Middle East region. It is our collective responsibility to uphold the law and learn from history to prevent the potentially disastrous consequences of challenging a peaceful treaty like Lausanne. A professor today will analyze more about Italy and the treaty. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Mr. Palas Anastasiadis, who is representative for Serbia.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Alexandros Palas Anastasiadis, and I have the narrative for the Kingdom of Serbia, Croatia, and Slovenia. The signing of the treaty in 1923 marked a pivotal moment with far-reaching implications for the decline of the Ottoman Empire and the reconfiguration of borders in Southeast Europe. It is essential to note, however, that the treaty did not directly impact Yugoslavia, as this nation had already been established during World War I, which occurred after the treaty was signed. Yugoslavia emerging after World War I was the result of amalgamation of regions inhabited by South Slavs. The country changed its name in 1929 from the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes to the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. While the Lausanne Treaty primarily focused on addressing issues stemming from the Ottoman Empire's decline, the impact indirectly influenced dynamics in Yugoslavia. Key aspects of the Lausanne Treaty included the acknowledgement of Iraq and Lebanon as independent nations, the establishment of Turkish borders, and the delineation of population exchanges between Greece and Turkey. Although Yugoslavia was not directly involved in the treaty negotiations, the reshaping of borders and population movements indirectly influenced the geopolitical landscape of Yugoslavia. In conclusion, while Yugoslavia did not participate in the Treaty of Lausanne, the treaty's effects and subsequent transformations in Southeastern Europe played a significant role in shaping Yugoslavia's emergence and functioning within the evolving regional environment. A professor today will analyze more about Serbia, Croatia, and Slovenia and the treaty. Thank you.
Another representative for Romania, Mr. Panis.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Konstantinos Panis and have the narrative for representing Romania. Let's delve into the noteworthy role played by Romania in the Treaty of Lausanne. In the historic events of 1923, Romania emerged as a key participant, actively engaging and contributing to the resolution of borders and the stabilization of the Balkan region. Romania's pivotal role in the Treaty of Lausanne underscores its unwavering commitment to peace and its dedication to diplomatic endeavors. Through skillful negotiations and the collaborative efforts, The country played a crucial part in shaping an agreement that facilitated peaceful coexistence among diverse ethnicities and regions. The involvement of Romania in the Treaty of Lausanne marked a substantial stride towards establishing enduring peace and stability in the area. It serves as a poignant reminder of the pivotal role diplomacy and collaboration play in addressing and resolving major international issues. Romania's commitment to this principle during the treaty negotiations has left a lasting impact on the region's history. A professor will analyze today more about Romania and the treaty. Thank you.
And now Ms. Koulouri will tell us about the impact of Japan on the treaty.
Thank you, Ms. Galerki. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Vasilia Koulouri and I have the narrative for representing Japan. In the interwar period, Japan's political, military and commercial expansion into the Middle East and Eastern Mediterranean mirrored the shifting dynamics of a global political economy and the quest for trade expansion. Japan's ascent to prominence in the aftermath of the First World War was marked by its pivotal role in international transit trade through the Suez Canal and Port Said, acting as a crucial bridge between the East and the West. Despite its significant stature as a rising power, Japan's economic expansion into the Middle East and the Mediterranean proved to be short-lived. While Japan held a key position in transit trade through the Suez Canal immediately after World War I, its ambitions faced challenges. Japan's interest in the Mediterranean world during World War I presented a golden opportunity, one that Japan seized to elevate its standing in the global stage. Japan played a substantial role in the war, expecting a commensurate post-war dividend for its contributions. However, the major powers, not viewed Japan as an equal force, failed to recognize its rightful share in the international spoils, resulting in an unjust distribution against Japan. Subsequently, Japanese trade experienced a sudden decline. Despite its initial advancements into the Middle East, Japan found itself compelled to withdraw due to ambitious and self-serving intentions that led to unfavorable outcomes. The episode underscores the complexities and challenges faced by Japan in maintaining its expanding influence in the international arena during this transformative period. Two professors will analyze more today on Japan and the treaty. Thank you.
And now let's hear from Mr. Kalogeromitros, the Greek representative.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Minos Kalogeromitros and I have the narrative for representing Greece. The Treaty of Lausanne, signed in 1923, yielded significant advantages for Greece across various dimensions. Firstly, Turkey's recognition of Greece's new borders encompassing territories formerly part of the Ottoman Empire like Western Thrace marked a pivotal development. However, Greece did experience a setback with the loss of Smyrna following its destruction and defeat under the Treaty of Sevres. Moreover, the treaty facilitated the forced movement of populations between Greece and Turkey, resulting in the repatriation and resettlement of hundreds of thousands of Greek refugees from Asia Minor. This measure aimed at the rehabilitation and reintegration into Greek society. An additional noteworthy outcome was Turkey's agreement to compensate Greece for the damages and losses incurred during the Greek-Turkish War 1919 to 1922. While the actual compensation may have been limited, it played a crucial role in alleviating economic challenges in Greece at the time. Lastly, Turkey committed to providing political guarantees for the independence and territorial integrity of Greece. This agreement sought to enhance Greece's sense of security and mitigate the risk of armed conflict in the future. In summary, Greece derived substantial benefits from the Treaty of Lausanne, encompassing territorial recognition, population movements, economic compensation, and political assurances, collectively contributing to the country's post-war recovery and stability. Thank you.
finally the representative for Turkey, Ms. Kilerci.
Ladies and gentlemen, Perski Kilerci, and I have the narrative for representing Turkey. The Lausanne Peace Treaty signed on July 24, 1923 marks the centennial celebration this year, making the sole surviving treaty from the aftermath of the World War I. This pivotal agreement played a foundational role in the democratization of Turkey, transforming the nation from a weakened power into a self-governing and powerful state. Mustafa Kemal built the drive weakened power force behind this transformation. He held the treaty as a demonstration of Turkey's newfound strength, countering the shortcomings of the Treaty of Sèvres signed by the Ottomans in 1920. The negotiations progress leading to the Treaty of Lausanne faced numerous hurdles, including disagreements over the commencement dates, traditional tactical considerations, issues surrounding territorial and military committees. The intricate negotiations were marked by power dynamics and conflicts of interest among the involved countries, showcasing the delicate balance that Turkey navigated. In conclusion, the Treaty of Lausanne remains a cornerstone of Turkish history, symbolizing its journey toward democratization and independence. While its challenges persist, varying perspectives of the treaty emerges enduring impact on the geopolitical landscape of the Eastern Mediterranean, Middle East, and the Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kilerci. That concludes the narration of the simulation of the diplomatic negotiations. And now we will pass to two analyses of court cases, starting with Mr. Vroustis.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dimitrios Vroustis. I have the narrative for the Moot Court regarding interpretation of Article 3 of the Lausanne Treaty. On December 1st, 1925, a momentous resolution was reached by the League of Nations Council embarking on the pivotal question of the Turkey-Iraq border. The Council, invoking Article 3, Paragraph 2 of the Treaty of Lausanne, endeavored to clarify crucial legal aspects and opted to seek the opinion of the Permanent Court of International Justice in an extraordinary session. Two primary questions were posed for the Court's consideration. 1. The nature of the Council's decision under Article 3, Paragraph 2. Is it an arbitral decision, a recommendation, or a simple mediation? 2. The unanimity requirement for the decision. Should it be unanimous or can a majority suffice? Could representatives of the interested parties participate in the vote? The Permanent Court of International Justice meticulously examined the intricacies of these questions. Information was obtained from both Britain and its representatives, as well as Turkey's Foreign Minister Tevfik Rauçti, shedding light on the signed agreements and the political events shaping Turkey-Iraq relations. All relevant documents, including the Council's meeting records, were submitted by the League of Nations Secretary-General for the Court's comprehensive consideration. In its deliberations, the Court initially scrutinized the broader political context of the Treaty of Lausanne, emphasizing the recurring territorial issues between Turkey and Iraq, notably the Mosul dispute. It underscored the need for consensus between the involved parties, advocating against a mere imposition of borders. Addressing the second question, the Court recognized that the Council's composition, consisting of representatives of states or members, differed significantly from national arbitrators in arbitral courts. Consequently, the votes of the parties' representatives should not influence the determination of unanimity. Following this rationale, on November 21, 1925, the Court delivered a decisive verdict. It affirmed that the Council's decision, as per Article 3, Paragraph 2 of the Treaty of Lausanne, would be binding on the parties, definitively establishing the frontier between Turkey and Iraq. Crucially, the decision must be reached by unanimous vote, with representatives of the parties excluded from the unanimity calculation. The enduring significance of this historic decision resonates even today in the intricate political balances of the Middle East. The meticulous legal groundwork laid by the League of Nations Council and the Permanent Court of International Justice continues to shape the geopolitical landscape in the region. Thank you.
And now passing to the first part of the second case by Mr. Moura.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Lydia Damoura. I have the narrative for moot court case of Nikolaos Kalfas. Following the conclusion of the First World War and the signing of the Lausanne Peace Treaty, the establishment of joint arbitration tribunals became imperative. One such tribunal was the Turkish-Romanian Joint Tribunal, tasked with addressing various cases, including the noteworthy instance involving Nikola Kalfas. Nikola Kalfas, a Turkish citizen of Greek descent, brought forth a claim against the Turkish government before the Joint Arbitration Court. His plea encompassed the restitution of property and self-compensation amount to 32,802 gold pounds for the duration of the Turkish government's occupation of his assets. Emphasizing his Romanian citizenship, Kalfas successfully convinced the court to consider his claims, a fact duly reported in Turkish newspapers of that era. However, the Joint Arbitral Tribunal contended that it lacked jurisdiction to entertain Kalfa's specific request, accepting its role solely as a forum for cases involving Greek nationals. In response, the Millet newspaper criticized the court's decision, demanding it erroneous, and drew attention to Turkey's representative eminently based withdrawal from the proceedings as a form of protest against the tribunal's ruling. The newspaper further informed the public that in addition to Kalfa's case, the Turkish-Romanian Joint Arbitration Court had rendered decision contrary to the stipulations of the Lausanne Peace Treaty in other instances. Thank you.
And our last speaker for the day with part 2 of this case, Ms. Petmeza.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Anastasia Paraskivi Petmeza. I have the narrative for the moot court case of Nikolaos Kalfas. The Turkish-Romanian Mixed Arbitration Court aimed to address disputes between Romania and Turkey, with one of its significant cases being that of Nikolaos Kalfas. This case found its place in archival records and garnered attention from magazines and newspapers of the period. Nikolaos Kalfas, a Turkish citizen of Greek origin, initiated legal proceedings seeking the restitution of his property, his agadat, and compensation amounting to almost 33,000 pounds in gold for the period his real estate was under the control of the Turkish government. Notably, Kalfas pursued the lawsuit based on his Romanian citizenship. The Turkish arbitrators contended that determining an individual's citizenship fell under the purview of the Joint Committee on Population Exchange rather than being within the competence of the Arbitration Committee. Expressing his concerns, Turkish arbitrator Emin Ali Bey wrote a letter to Baron Odesot stating his decision to resign. He argued that the court had overstepped the powers granted by the Lausanne Treaty, discarded the principles of international courtesy, and violated the country's legislation on civil status. Despite Emin Ali Bey's effort, the court decision remained unchanged. However, a revaluation of the matter took place 5 years later, revealing that the court has indeed Romania arrested of the nationality of the applicant falling within jurisdiction. Consequently, it was determined that the compliance with the judgment was unnecessary as the case had been misconstrued and concluded by misinterpreting a contractual provision. And this is the end of the European University Cyprus Law School students' presentation on behalf of all students and for myself speaking. Thank you.
Λοιπόν, έχουμε ολοκληρώσει. Ladies and gentlemen, I will not say much because now it's the end of the conference. We will have a choir. We can have the computer open. Μπορούμε να έχουμε ανοιχτό και το υπολογιστή για να καταγραφεί κιόλας. Αρκετοί φοιτητές έχουν μάθημα, οπότε θα είμαι σύντομος. I will be short. First point. Students and professors presented the different aspects of the Treaty of Lausanne. So we will prepare a book about this because it's very important for the region, for Greece, for Cyprus, for many countries. The Treaty of Lausanne contains 143 articles. It abolished the Treaty of Sèvres, as we said before. It has a lot provisions about the borders of the states. It is also about the exchange of populations and so forth. And the question is, did the Treaty of Lausanne fail in any way? So we can say that in a way it failed about the recognition of minority rights, the Kurdish people, maybe the Armenians and so forth. But we can also say that it was a success because of conflict resolution, of negotiation and outcome and agreements, prevention of armed conflicts, maybe. But then we had World War II, and of course, economic cooperation. I will stop here. I would like to thank all the participants, online participants, and you. And we can now have some songs from the choir of Engomi. Παρακαλώ, ήρθε η ώρα να πάρουν τις θέσεις τους οι χοροδοί μας με το μαέστρο μας που διευθύνει για να ακούσουμε 2-3 τραγουδάκια, έτσι, και έτσι να κλείσουμε ευχάριστα. Όσοι είστε online, if you are online, you can still stay and listen to the songs. Thank you.
Στο πιάνο συνοδεύει ο Δήμος Νέοφυτος Ασσώτης. Πόσο χρόνο έχουμε? Ό,τι θέλουν.
Και καταγράφω.
Το μεταξύ, αύριο μέχρι το ευρώ. Να πάμε στο... Αυτός είναι να μας φωτογραφίσεις, θα σου πω εφημερίδες. Μόνο τρίτη. Αύριο μόνο τρίτη πρόβα. Αύριο μόνο... Δεν τι ακούει. Αύριο μόνο τρίτη πρόβα. Εντάξει. Θα τα πούμε όλα. Εντάξει. Δεν μας πειράζει. Thank you.